Hello, this is the October video chat. A few announcements, then I'll get to the questions. Also, some of you may notice I have some facial damage. I'll talk about that in a minute if you want. It looks a lot better than it did. Uh, let's see. Okay, so for the announcements, first is I'm working on the Halloween episode. I think it'll be done early for once this year. I really wanted to have more than one, but my instincts were telling me I tend to underestimate how much time everything takes. And I thought I could do it, but then I would have zero free time for weeks. And I didn't want to do that. And especially with still having to manage the Stop Killing Games campaign to some degree. Yeah, minor lacerations detected. There you go. Oh, what else? So the second video I was thinking of for Halloween, I was a little hesitant because I wasn't sure it was quite scary enough. But I figured, but it could also fit in fine for like a late episode, like post Halloween one. So I may just do that one anyway, and just plan for it to be November. There's a lot of videos I want to get out. That's the plan, is to try and get as much game dungeon as I can out, while having a sane pace, because in the past I haven't been so good about that. Which it's well, okay. I don't want to get too. I'm actually not sure which one I want to do after that, because my original plan was to do something like shorter and easier. That might be like a Commodore 64 game, but that got postponed. But maybe I should do that after the Halloween stuff, and then at some point I want to do the follow-up episode. So, and then there's other stuff I want to do. So I'll figure something out. Let's see. For other announcements, I think there was something else, and I should have written it down. But this one is kind of what I would classify under the abuse of power category, just random stuff I looking for help with. I did spend some time finally getting around to trying what's called outpainting on wallpapers I like, to try and convert them to sort of an ultra wide aspect ratio. And I had some success, but I could tell I was a little bit out of my league, where I was using the software Automatic 1111 with ControlNet. And I got good results. I'm just trying to expand the image left and right. And I got good results, except almost every time the color would never match up completely. What it would look like would be as if you had a photo and then you covered it, but then you left the edge of it exposed to the sun for months. And then when you look at it, you see like a clear line where like the color's just off in between the two. And I couldn't figure out a way to fix that. I tried every single variable I could find, did as much research as I could. So I realized I'm out of my league here. So if you do have experience with, AI image generation, especially outpainting, feel free to contact me, rosswscott@gmail.com. So, because I could fix it in Photoshop, but I want to do this for hundreds of images. So I have like a wallpaper archive. I'm basically just expanding the edges of existing images. That's all I want to do. So, what? The other thing, oh yeah, this is another. I'm a little hesitant to mention this one because there are probably people who have already emailed me about this I need to get back to, but since I'm here now, another side thing I'm messing with is getting, apparently there's cheat engine hacks for Xenia, the Xbox 360 emulator, to make at least some games render in ultra wide. And I've seen that for one, but I guess the details have changed or something. Following the instructions exactly, I couldn't do it. But that was just for one game, and it makes me wonder, like, what's the process for determining how you find out what the value is you need to hack to make it render in ultra wide? And I have no clue. But I figure people who are experienced in Cheat Engine might know about that. So feel free to contact me about that also. Yeah, I guess I'll talk about my face now. It looks a lot better. This is like 4 days of healing right here. It's not that interesting, but I figure people keep asking if I don't mention it. That's a friction burn, what you're looking at there. It's basically what happened was I went to bed, then woke up not long later with just a gradually to the point of excruciating kind of gas pain. And I just kind of collapsed at one point. It was kind of on the brink of consciousness. So this is basically the results of me hitting my head probably on the carpeted floor and having a carpet burn from that. Except I didn't even notice the pain from that because I was practically paralyzed from it. I think what happened was earlier that day I ate dried coconut, and even though that was like 6 or 7 hours earlier, and I thought I drank a lot of water, like multiple glasses, it wasn't enough, or else I drank it too soon and the coconut flakes didn't absorb it, and then later it decided to absorb it from my guts or something. I don't know, but that was the only thing I can think of that caused it. I kind of I was in so much pain I couldn't even talk really, but I managed to make some noise, and my wife managed to run and help give me some water while I'm there lying on the floor, and then I had some water, and pretty much 5 minutes later it's like I was fine. But man, and in the meantime it looked like I got mugged, so that's still healing up. But yeah, my first impulse was just this. My first thought when thinking of how to explain this was like in Fight Club when he goes to the doctor, he just kind of says calmly, "I fell down some stairs," like real deadpan. Like, but yeah, it's healing up pretty well. It looks a lot better. Because there were like big bruise marks days earlier where you could see it. Any other announcements? I'm mostly just doing Game Dungeon. Campaign's pretty much the same place it was last month. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So I guess I'll start taking questions. I'll answer live ones at the end unless I kind of notice them. Well, somebody's asking one that did come up. I'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so yeah, I guess I might pick and choose more of the questions this time, since I figured the top question strikes me as one I could just skip. But since it's the top one, have you actually been to a single cursed farm in your entire life, or are you just faking it for views and clout? Well, I mean, I've been to multiple farms. I don't know if any of them were cursed. So the best of my knowledge, no. I have been to places that people said were haunted and said that everybody else freaked out about them. I didn't feel anything. So, and that's kind of been the place in every single haunted place I've been to. So, yeah, if you want to go by that definition, I think I'm a null. That's when you're just immune to all telepathic stuff at all. So I think that's where I would line in on it. Though, if we want to go for a half answer, I think it would qualify as a cursed farm in a game. Was it Painkiller Overdose? It's one of the expansions. There is a farm level that kind of gave me similar vibes. And yeah, that one was sure cursed. I had to blow away a bunch of people in that one. Or entities. I forget what the enemies were there. And part of the inspiration for the Accursed Farms logo was I was remembering like the artwork from one of the old kids' books, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And one of them was for a story called Harold. And that was kind of the image I was giving. Well, okay, well, what if we just kind of moved in after Harold left and, we're on the farm there? I was just coming up with names for Accursed Farms. Like, I think I mentioned before, the runner-up was Space Lumberjacks. And I would have just had like some astronaut with an axe in space, maybe heading towards some tree floating there. So yeah, somebody says there are neat farms in Grim Dawn. Yeah, that's a game I kind of want to see if I can get working in VR to some extent eventually and have like ground camera view and go through the map on that. The Grim Dawn map is pretty great across the board. Let's see. Okay, so, well, okay, then we have several questions about the campaign, so that's probably what's next. Okay, so the next one. They say they know it's highly unlikely. I don't know if this is highly unlikely. But they're saying, but hypothetically, say Ubisoft liquidates the company after the recent dip in stock prices and is bought out by Tencent. Since you said we pretty much needed the crew to proceed any further on several angles, how would that affect the campaign? I honestly do not know, and that could be problematic because we really do. Well, okay, because the worst case scenario would be that the consumer protection agencies are realizing this is really complicated and we're not sure how to deal with this. And then they realize, oh, wait, the company everybody's complaining about went under. Okay, fine, but then we're done. We're just, there's no reimbursement or there's no ruling because they all went bankrupt, so we don't have to deal with this anymore. I do not know enough about the internal workings of the various consumer protection agencies, the DGCCRF, the Verbraucherscontrole, which I'm probably mispronouncing again, the ACCC, to know if that's what would happen or not. But maybe that does give the excuse for them to do that. So I'm really hoping Ubisoft stays in business at least until we get those rulings. They could fold the day after, and then I think we would get most of what we needed but yeah, I'm kind of neutral. I'm honestly kind of neutral whether Ubisoft stays in business or not. I mean, I'm not, because they've had a lot of bad practices, but they've had some good games too. But whatever. That's not. Ubisoft was always the target of convenience, and it almost kind of had to be Ubisoft. Though maybe we've made enough headway that it could happen with another company, because the other big European companies that I can think of aren't doing this crap. Because you have, CD Projekt, Larian, I think they're in Europe, right? What are some of the other big European game companies? See, Ubisoft had an online-only title, they killed it off completely, and they were big enough that we could get a lot of complaints in. That was like everything aligning for that to happen. So if they go under, then I guess what you can maybe do is, like, let's say we have like Blizzard, Activision. They're not based in the EU. However, they would have a publishing arm, and let's hope one of them has it in an EU country and not like Switzerland or something where it becomes even muddier. Maybe we could still take the same action, but it just felt like everything was uphill. So like by it being Ubisoft, that was like one of the few breaks we had on this. That like, all right, this is a French company. They killed the game entirely, So whereas if it's an American company, but they have a publishing arm, and maybe that one's not in the EU, it's like, man, can they even do anything then? Or the consumer agency is going to say, well, you have to take this up with, the FTC, and of course, but whenever you have to do that, then it's just dead. So I don't know. I'm honestly keeping my fingers crossed that Ubisoft stays in business long enough for us to get answers back from these consumer protection agencies. And I think they can do it. Now, if they get a buyout, does that all become Tencent's liability and all the action still on? Maybe. But then Tencent's probably going to have a lot more resources to throw at it too for legal defense. So that doesn't help. So yeah, it's hard to say. I really want them to hang on until we get preferably until we get all of the decisions from Australia, Germany, and France in particular. So, let's see. And another question I could have skipped. How many times have you been chased out of a town by pitchfork-wielding villagers? I can only remember it in Resident Evil 4, the original. I haven't played the new one. Though I wasn't really chased out of the town, though. I kind of held my ground from what I remember. So, yeah, I remember thinking that the game had a great balance because it's like every time they gave me just enough ammo that by the time I'm getting to the last villager, I'm getting kind of worried I'm running out. And then I get to them and it's like, oh, right, I have 3 bullets left and everybody's dead. Perfect. So I remember that about Resident Evil 4, but yeah, in reality, never to the to my awareness. No, I would have known that. So. Oh, it has dynamic difficulty. Okay, I didn't know that. When Next question: when Clint from Lazy Game Reviews is back on track, yeah, he's maybe a chat with him would help feasibly regarding Stop Killing Games. Yeah, well, 2 things, and then they mentioned Kelsey Lewin. I'm afraid I don't know. I'm sorry. From Metal Jesus' crew, and then somebody else they're no longer with Metal Jesus. Okay, well, a few things. First, I had already kind of considered that with Clint, but he kind of came through for us earlier back in April, I think, for announcing like the original arm of the campaign with the consumer protection action. So I figured I wasn't in a rush to pester him about that, but I was thinking I should at least contact him before we get close to the petition or the initiative ending. But since then he was a victim of the hurricane and had a tree fall on his house. And I saw some pictures of the damage. So he more than has his hands full. And this is the last thing I need to bug him with. So, maybe several months down the line, depending on how close we are on the signature count, I might see if I can get him to give it a mention. But yeah, I figure he already did us a solid back in April. So I didn't need to rush out and bug him about that. Now for the other people mentioned, I don't have any contact with them, but I'd of course be happy to discuss it with them, or just if they didn't want to do that, maybe they could just give it a mention, the European Citizens Initiative. Yeah, that's the thing. This doesn't have to go through me. I mean, in fact, some people, actually one group that got my attention did this on their own. The developers of Dolphin, the emulator for GameCube and Wii games, put it on the front page of their site. So I'm thinking, oh, that is awesome, because that kind of keeps on giving. Because then anytime somebody comes there for the emulator, they might see that banner. So that's a big help. So yeah, it's still an ongoing open offer for if you want me to talk about it or just bypass me entirely or whatever. The expiration expires pretty much in July, when the initiative ends, and then it's kind of done one way or the other. Or action on our end is done. The final action could be a year or two, depending on how it goes. But yeah, that's still an ongoing offer. And on to that, and the next question, they're saying the signups have been quite slow. Do you have any collaborations in mind? Strategies with more local YouTubers? And then there's what looks like an AI ad answer below that. Man. Yeah, at some point I'm not going to be sure if it's even people asking me questions, but these seem real. Unfortunately, nothing at the moment other than last time. And the big ones we have where I got in touch with all of them and got a reply back saying, yeah, we can do something. And I said I'm available, but then I haven't heard anything since then, was with Louis Rossman, Gamers Nexus, and Asmongold. Now, since then, for Asmongold, some developments have occurred. So I think I should jump down to a bottom question here. The real fun one to answer. They're saying, have you been keeping up with recent news on him? I have been informed. Yeah, in the last video chat, you weren't sure why people hate him. Do the recent news change your mind at all? Are you still willing to chat with them regarding the campaign? Okay, well, I guess the short answer is I'm not completely certain, but probably. And I'll explain why. What happened was he made a statement basically advocating for genocide. And yeah, so if that was it and it just stopped there, yeah, I probably would cancel plans with it because, like I said before, I don't want stuff that's so edgy this is like nuclear to touch it. Since then, he's been banned from Twitch for a while, and he released a video, which I went out of my way to watch because I knew this question was coming up. And in the video, it sounded like this was a wake-up call for him, and it was forcing him to kind of reevaluate kind of who he's becoming. Because my first impulse was that this sounds like someone, like that statement, it sounded like someone who's kind of online and in their own worlds too much, where you can kind of lose perspective of what you're saying. And man, I hate doing this, but if I were to give nuance to what he said, at least my interpretation of it, it would be that, I think it sounded like his main issue was with Sharia law and how he thinks it's oppressive or something like that. And this other stuff was just sort of, from my perspective, it felt like a kind of a knee-jerk response from what he said from that. And when you look at it all together, it looks really bad. The fact that he's saying, oh yeah, this is really bad and he didn't mean it in that way, means, look, that's happened to me a couple times, not on this issue or this subject, but like I was thinking in one of the video chats, I was kind of mixing up in my head, was it eugenics and gene editing? So if you were to look just by what I said face value, it's like, oh yeah, that sounds bad. Because that can be taken to monstrous places, which isn't where I was going with it. Or I think there was another, I've had examples like that where part of what you're saying is deliberate and part of it's just sort of automatic reflex because it pertains to the topic you were discussing. And I think some of that was automatic. So the fact that he's kind of recanted that and is trying to, in his words, not be a stupid asshole, a mean one, I think that means, it's not hopeless. And from my perspective, it's really simple. First, I never even wanted to be doing this campaign, but since I'm trying my best to make it work. And I'm looking at this from the perspective of trying to get signatures for the initiative. Because if we can get that, that opens up a whole new avenue of attack where I think we really would solve this. I mean, some people have different views on that, but I am optimistic, and I have not been optimistic on much in this campaign. So, oh yeah, I should mention this. Regarding what Asmongold said, I do not agree with that. Even if I'm not an expert on that issue, it's safe to assume I'm always not in favor of genocide under pretty much any scenario. So like whatever the issue is, if I haven't said anything, you can assume I'm not in favor of genocide, regardless of the circumstances. In fact, I was thinking the only one I would be in favor of would basically have to involve like aliens from outer space invading the Earth, in which case, okay, yeah, we better wipe them out. So something that's never happened. So if I did talk to him, it would not be an endorsement of anything he said with that. It would just be to kind of get the message out to more people. So yeah, this is obviously not a direction I was anticipating the campaign going. And I think I speak for all the other members of the campaign that they are not in favor of genocide also. However, going back to the signature count again, right now the rate of signatures is not high enough that we'll meet the goal come July. So we really do need some bigger events if this is going to be successful. Asmongold is a big YouTuber. He seems not hopeless from the apology video he gave. So again, I'm kind of undecided, but if the ball's in his court anyway, because I replied back to him, said we can set up a time, and then I never heard back from him. So I think I probably won't pursue it at this point, but if I do hear back from him, I'm leaning towards yes. So, but that's the other thing to consider is his position, because he is not like a senator or something, or an ambassador, or someone who's actually going to affect policy regarding, you know, genocide or actions that are taken. So if it's someone who has like a bad view, which I think I'm willing to give him a benefit of the doubt that I think it was more nuanced than that. He's not really going to affect that issue either way. So it's a weird line to walk, and not one I wanted to get in. As I said, it's real simple. I just wanted games to stop being destroyed, and now we're in this weird territory, which is not part of the initiative, not really where I wanted to take it. But yeah, I'm trying. So I guess the way I'm looking at it is just the mere act of, does the mere act of talking to him depress people wanting to sign the initiative so much that it's just dead in the water? Or does that get to more people and then we gain more traction again? I think it would be the latter, actually, because it's kind of, it's come to a crawl at the moment. So, like, I think the big event that might, like, let's assume no other big YouTuber talks about this again. I think the only event that I can foresee left that might still be able to tick up the signatures would be when we do finally hear a ruling from one of these agencies, like, you know, DGCCRF or ACCC. The ACCC might even be past July, though. They were one of the slowest to take this up. Yeah, like the ACCC resisted at first, and then we got the law firm to file the complaint, and then it finally got escalated after the law firm. So it was exactly as that one volunteer said. But yeah, so it's what? Yeah, and I would kind of, if I did talk to Asmagul, I would kind of insist, like, let's not discuss genocide or Middle Eastern politics. Let's like just talk about gaming or digital rights or the law or just random fun stuff. You know, nothing along the, I think you would be okay with those terms. But yeah, so I do not endorse what he said, but we're in weird territory. So it's not in my court now anyway. So I think the most likely scenario is he just forgets we existed and doesn't reply. And this does make me not want to like actively kind of push to talk to him. So it's, I mean, it's kind of comical because like most of the videos I saw, they seemed like pretty normal takes, just a gamer giving his opinion. And then it's like, yeah, let's get to genocide. Okay, great, thanks. This isn't. This is not where I was trying to take things. All right, so what? Yeah, so that's my stance on that. I'm leaning towards yes, but it's definitely a weaker stance than it was previously. I guess the thing is, nobody sent me like a smoking gun clip like that prior to his comment. I mean, maybe there was one, but I feel like if he had said something that loaded, it would have kind of risen to the top from his detractors. So let's see. All right. That's my spot. Okay, yeah. So I lost my spot completely. Let me just give me a second. Okay, well, somebody's saying thanks to everyone that supports the movement. Yeah, I mean, oh yeah, oh, this is a good, well, this is a good point to bring up. Someone asked if I can make a video on getting Belgium support since it's close to being to the final threshold. They say it's honestly been very slow, and I feel like if we get this threshold passed, it'll get a little attention as we can start focusing on the 1 million mark. My suggestion would be to make a short video called "We Need Belgium Citizens Help." Okay, I'm afraid I have to disagree with this because we don't need Belgium citizens. We need any EU citizens. You guys should not worry about the thresholds. Like, they're a minor detail. I would be amazed if we made it to 1 million signatures and we did not hit the threshold for 7 countries. The threshold thing is really just there in case this was something like 1 or 2 countries really wanted, but every other EU country was against. It's kind of a stop gap against that. So in my mind, the Belgium citizens for signing the signature are no more important than any other EU citizen signing it. So it can be Belgium, German, Croatian, French, whatever. They all count. And if we get to that 1 million mark, I would bet money we would have passed the thresholds in enough countries. So just don't even focus on that. Just go wherever. However, if you have more inroads with Belgian citizens, obviously focus there because you have more reach and you could get more coming from Belgium. But if you know more in Spain or something, focus there. Wherever you think you can help the most. So it's, that might get a very slight bump if we had that, but no, we should have always been focusing on the 1 million mark is the way I look at it. And I feel like that's one thing I kind of stumbled on is I should have kind of communicated that more clearly because I never really liked that people were like kind of hyper-focused on this country. And then like the thing is, if your country passes the threshold, if we don't hit that 1 million mark, none of that matters. This all gets thrown in the trash. So yeah, all this effort, none of it matters if we don't pass that 1 million threshold. So that's why it's it's tricky trying to figure out where to focus effort on this because, I say none of this matters. The Consumer Protection Action still goes through. So that is independent of the signatures. So we still have three strong chances of solving this independent of the European Citizens Initiative. But it would be a lot better if we could pass the European Citizens Initiative. Now, there's also still Canada and the UK, but I'm kind of pessimistic there. And I think the only avenues we've completely kind of shut the door on, or 90% in one case, one would be the Australian petition. Because the Australian petition went through, they basically said straight up that they're not going to do anything because there are laws on this and you should go through the agencies more or less. And the agencies initially said we don't want to deal with this, but then thankfully that money that was spent on the law firm, thankfully that did make the difference there and getting the ACCC to pay attention to it. But the actual petition option for Australia, I would consider closed because I think while we could launch a new one, I don't think that would do anything. And the other one that I think is completely closed or just about would probably be Brazil because it's like we were ready to go in the lawsuit, but we couldn't get that information on how many were affected, and the law firm didn't want to proceed without that. So, unless somebody thinks they have another way to get the lawsuit rolling in Brazil, I think it's like the longer this goes on, the more we kind of lose our window, I think, for maximum efficacy. So, and I'm willing to shut the door on USA too, but that was I was never really expecting much happening there. Canada and UK, I'm pessimistic, but I'm not ruling out 100% yet. So, but I think France, Germany, and Australia through the consumer agency are where our biggest chances are. And the Citizens Initiative is the long shot, but man, if we can pass that threshold, it's on, is the way I look at it. So. Somebody's asking, did you try talking with California Dems and see if they can go a couple steps further? No, I did not, but you don't understand how pessimistic I am on this on multiple levels. Like the short version is what was it? Pro CD versus Zeidenberg means that this is more or less the law of the land, and you would have to have, I guess, a direct ballot initiative or an act of Congress to overturn it. And it would pretty much have to be either in, geez, I guess it would really kind of have to be in California, I think, because you could, because I know like Valve is in Washington, but what you need is where is the, maybe Washington if you could find the right company doing it, because the only way, because if it's in any other state, the EULA says that this is going to be tried in California usually, because that's where Silicon Valley is, and it's very big tech friendly, that sort of thing. So, I mean, yeah, maybe Washington, but you need a direct ballot initiative, and then that would only, you would have to get tens of thousands, I think, of already registered voters. Geez, I forget what the threshold is. It's high. Like, I think it's so high that you would really have to have a more general issue than this, and not just, I mean, because this is still kind of niche compared to like general politics. This isn't about like payroll tax or something like that, or healthcare, something that affects just about everybody. Or you would have to have an act of Congress on the federal level, and I just can't see that. I mean, I think you would need to be a multimillionaire to have any hope of that. Because, yeah, I guess the other thing is a few years back, loot boxes had way more attention on this, both in the public and in politics, than anything Stop Killing Games has had. And the most that happened with loot boxes in the United States that I remember is like at a Hawaiian representative talking about it, and then I never heard anything else. Like, I don't think there was like a vote on it or anything. I think it's just so stacked against us. And the U.S. is an area where lobbying money is probably going to go a lot farther and not in our favor compared to the EU. Whereas, I mean, the EU went up against like Apple and won on things. So, yeah, I don't know. I would need someone to spell out the scenario that sounds more likely than like me winning a lottery ticket or getting hit by lightning. And like, I think we have coin toss odds in the EU, and Australia hard to say. It's because I mean, even without the initiative. Whereas I think the joke I made is I think we have firing squad odds in the United States on this. So yeah, I don't know. I'm too pessimistic to pursue that, unless it's not that my mind couldn't be changed. It's just that I would need to see an amazing plan to change my mind on this, that anything can be done on this in the U.S. It's like I said in the last Dead Game News video that that the California law does almost nothing. And I also think this is about the most you can expect from the United States on this issue. So that's about how cynical I am. So look, I'm not pursuing anything I don't think we have a chance. Like, if I thought this was all hopeless, I never would have started the campaign. So, let's see. Okay, so next question. Oh yeah. Well, okay. This was sort of covered, but I guess not explicitly. They're saying my thoughts on the new Steam terms update, clarifying you don't own the game when you buy it. Yeah, they updated their EULA or something. I think it kind of always said that, but maybe not as explicitly. And that was always kind of the framing we were working from anyway, especially in the US. This doesn't really change much anything, in my opinion. I mean, unless there's something I don't know about. Because, I mean, I think the first thing you should remember is Steam policy is not law. And this is not really going to have an impact, I don't think, on how the EU is going to view this. Either they decide this is how it goes or they don't. And there's precedents for Steam policy not holding up in other countries because, like, again, in Australia, the ACCC sued Valve over not allowing refunds, and the Valve lost on that. And also, while they sort of won, not completely, when the UFC in France sued Valve over the game ownership thing. No, it was not being able to resell digital copies of games. In the lower court, they won, and Valve was trying to use the defense that these are services, or maybe they said licenses. I'd have to check the case law on that. Something I'm not eager to do, but they were trying to make the argument that no, these are not digital goods; these are services. And the French court said that basically, due to how they operate and market this and everything, that they are considered goods. Now, that got overturned in the appellate court. Not that argument in particular, I don't think, that they weren't selling services, but rather that video games are considered more than just digital goods due to the copyrighted content of it, that the rights get more complicated. And since then, it's been just a complete gray area how many rights you have regarding games, and it's not clearly defined. That's what we should be taking care of with the campaign with the DGCCRF. So basically, Valve's excuse and what they're putting there didn't cut it. So these are at least two. Might be more instances of what Valve is saying their policy is doesn't cut it in court. So that's the way to look at this. Now, that said, look, the U.S. has surrendered on this, especially with that California law. I think what Valve says regarding licenses is pretty much going to line up almost exactly with the law of the land in the United States. I think hope for progress on this issue in the United States coming from the U.S. is over. I'm cynical, but I just can't see any openings at all there. I think the only scenario that would make me change my mind and thinking, oh, this has a chance, would be if like some, independently wealthy person decided like, hey, they're pissed that their games are getting shut down, so they fund lobbyists to try and get this changed. So if somebody like Notch decided, hey, this pisses him off and he's going to fund a bunch of lobbyists on this, okay, then I could see an actual opening. But anything less than that, I just don't see it. So, but yeah, I don't think this really changes anything. And this is also why I was, why the focus of the campaign was never for labeling, that you don't own anything. I mean, if you want to know more of my thoughts on this, even though I put it out before Steam had their change to the EULA, look up the last Dead Game News I did, the one on California law. It's pretty much all the same thoughts. So they're saying they don't think Notch is an American. Doesn't matter. He just has to pay American lobbyists. He doesn't have to pay American lobbyists. He just has to pay lobbyists that work with American politicians. So, yeah, that's true. The money could come from literally anywhere. I hadn't thought of it that way. So, okay. Yeah, this is one I saw, but I wasn't. This is my bad. I didn't think about this one enough. Are there any games in particular you'd be itching to see release a Halloween or horror-themed DLC expansion? There probably are, but I'm trying to think of like which ones would just really be okay. Well, chat. What games would you want to see have a Halloween or horror-themed expansion? Because I'm sure there's some good candidates. I guess you could have. Okay, I'm not sure it'd be like the top of my list, but it's one game I kind of want to run around in VR just to see the wilderness. But one comes to mind is like the Hunter game, where normally you're just like hunting deer or boar or something. So yeah, having a horror themed DLC for that would be good. Because I feel like the games that would benefit the most are ones that are kind of tame. Yeah, like I think there literally was. Yeah, I mentioned it in like I think The Last Stand Game Dungeon, where about that there was a zombie DLC for like a train simulator. Like, so yeah, that would be interesting where, you're traveling at night and then you're seeing things in the woods as you travel by. That would be a nice kind of addition. Because I'm thinking if like the game's already like really gory or over the top, well then like a horror or a Halloween DLC isn't going to be as impactful. Whereas if it's kind of more tame, then it has like a lot more punch to it. Like I've seen the reverse of this where I saw a trailer for there was a Warhammer 40K. I think it was a DLC or an expansion for like a power cleaning simulator. So in the game, you're going through and you're like power cleaning all these like tanks and mechs and stuff, and like doing repairs to make it look like squeaky clean, that sort of thing. So yeah, see, somebody's saying DayZ. I mean, I don't think there would be much benefit from DayZ. So the bigger the contrast you have from the source game, I think the better it is. Okay, so somebody's saying a serial killer patch for something like The Sims. Yeah. Turn The Sims into like a mystery survival game. That would be awesome. That would make me more interested in The Sims. So, it starts off tame, but then you could have it like trickle in where like first, like you hear something weird, like you like see like some reports in the newspaper about like, oh, there's some mysterious disappearances of other Sims. And then it's like your neighbor, something happens to them and you're not sure what. And then you find like, like a dead animal nearby or like some unidentified bloodstains. So you can like trickle it in to like raise the tension like it's a slasher movie or something. Yeah, let's see. I tend to always be down with Halloween themed stuff in general. So, I'm one of these people where like if Halloween was just a year round thing, that I would be all right with that, and kind of it would fit pretty well with me. So yes, Zoo Tycoon. Now you keep monsters in cages. Yeah. So that could be a nice touch, or some of them have gotten out. That's a good one. Somebody's saying a Langoliers theme for Flight Simulator. Yeah. That would be pretty neat. Yeah, because I like both sides. I like the full spectrum of Halloween because on one side you have like the really scary stuff, but then the other side you have like the kind of tame things where it's just like a little spooky and it's still okay for kids. I like all of it. I just like the aesthetic theming of even like the light stuff. So I'm all aboard with Halloween. Let's see. Okay, we saw a few questions on this, so I guess I'm gonna have to. Are there any? Is there any chance to receive at least one Freeman's Mind episode this year? Yeah, I guess I should. I'll go at it and just see how I do with it because what I'm not going to do is release a week episode by my standards. So if I'm trying and I feel like none of this is funny, then I'm not going to do it. But I'll give it another shot. The other thing is you can thank YouTube. It's kind of disincentivized Freeman's Mind because the same views pull in like half the income that Game Dungeon does now with the algorithm, or it might even be less than that. So, but yeah, I apologize for neglecting it so much. I should give it another shot. So yeah, I'll try and get another Freeman's Mind out. But it's unfortunately going to be lower priority than Game Dungeon. So I was asking how I am. I'm better now that I'm not working pretty much every waking hour, but I still would like more free time. But so better, I guess. Yeah, and I barely even felt the face damage. But that's because I was in just incredible amount of pain from the gas. Yeah, actually, there's a good... And that reminds me, there's a good South Park clip of a doctor having gas pain. I'll link to that in the description there. Let's see. Okay, well, along the same, the answer is still the same as before, but I saw a few questions like this. How has the Stop Killing Games campaign affected work on the movie? It basically brought it to a complete standstill. What I thought was going to be happening was for like the first quarter of this year, I would just try and get a spree of videos out to try and tie people over somewhat, then just go all in exclusively on the movie for like probably a couple months to just kind of get things more off the ground. And then once things are kind of flowing workflow-wise, then I could go back gradually to making more regular videos. Instead, the campaign swallowed everything, and I never wanted to do it, but I realized this was the best, literally the best opportunity I think we've ever had on this issue. And I think that's turning out to be true, because, I mean, we've seen the resistance to it, on multiple levels. With like, again, with the ACCC, we kind of got word back that they didn't want to deal with this. So imagine if we had been pushing a game that was more kind of a hazy situation where, like I mentioned in the video, Destiny 2, where that's a game where people have had a lot of content removed for DLC that they've paid for. Maybe all of some of the DLC, I'm not sure. Well, if they're willing to not want to do anything on something like The Crew, where the entire game was killed and you paid for it as a one-time purchase, then if they're not willing to take action on that, then there's no game they're really going to take action on unless they have enough pressure. So in that scenario, you want all your ducks in a row and make it like your best possible candidate. And I think The Crew checked those boxes. The only way The Crew could have been a better candidate would have been if it was even more popular. So if it was like Overwatch popular. So yeah, I really think that was their only shot. So I feel awful that the movie got delayed yet again, but this has a chance of saving games like permanently. And if that happens, then I think it will have been worth it. And if it doesn't, I guess at the very least, I'll never have that nagging doubt again, and I'm never going to spend any more time on this from a legal angle anyway. I'm still interested in the AI angle of game extrapolation, but so this will close the book on it for me one way or the other, however this campaign turns out. But so now I'm kind of back to where I was at the beginning of the year, which is, okay, spend a couple months getting as many videos out as I can. Then once I've sort of stockpiled them for people, so to kind of tie people over, then I can take another swing at the movie again. So, sorry. It's kind of, the analogy that popped into my head. Okay. Two analogies. One is like, you know how if we were to have a launch or send a probe to Mars, we want to do that when we're closest to the planet on its orbit. And then if, wait 6 months, it's going to be, take way longer for it to get there. I was thinking like that, or a more real world example, when ships leave sea, they want to leave when the tide's out, so they're not going against the waves. So it's kind of like that, where with the movie, I kind of want to get more things in line first. But yeah, all my plans got trashed, and I apologize for that. But look, the story of my life has become better late than never. So it's still on. It's just the camp. I didn't want to do this campaign for multiple reasons, but nobody else stepped up, so I drew the short straw, is the way I look at it. If you could actually become a planeswalker and visit other worlds, would you do it? Yeah, 100%. I think the only thing that would make me hesitant would be I'd want some way to kind of have a preview of what I'm going into, so there's not like I'm not walking into pure lava or something, or a poisonous gas atmosphere. But yeah, 100%. That would be living the dream. I think because when I think about like at my very core, what do I want like out of my existence? It's stuff like that. That's like wanting to just see fantastic worlds. That's why like one of my long-term goals is to eventually have kind of a room with ventilation for one of those like 360 treadmills so I could walk around in VR worlds because I think that's the closest I'll ever come to like what my mind is after. And I think I might get it someday. And the I've been having more and more. Yeah, I've gradually done a little bit more VR, though not lately because I didn't want any blood getting on the freaking VR headset with from my face. Because even though there was only even though it was like only really bloody like the first night, it can be kind of slow to kind of heal up completely and make a perfect seal. So, but yeah, actually, I was doing tests, and the game I've done that I'm 100% going to go through it again in VR is Blood Omen 2. That's one I played a little bit of in actual stereoscopic back, in early 2000s with the Revelator glasses. So I wanted to revisit it and like really but even then they had issues then. Uh, what the, what the, so I tested it, and that game has issues running on Windows 10, though there's good patches now. And I got it working in Vorpex and stereoscopic 3D. And then I tested the Wii version in Dolphin actually, and that was pretty good too. But then I found out there was a fork of Dolphin specifically for VR, and I tried that, and it is just jaw dropping. Like it's not perfect, but for it being a hack job, it's about as good as you could possibly expect. Like, yeah, so it feels like I'm in Nosgoth, or was it Meriden now, and you can. The best way I could describe it would be take the game. So that's a third-person game, 3D game, and imagine where the camera is. Now imagine you're in the game. When you look around, you can look around, have a free look, even though your character is still there. So it kind of feels like you're tagging along with the character in front of you. So, let's see. Yeah, now there is plenty of occlusion culling on the sides, and I've heard there are hacks to get around that. But I looked at it; it sounded like it was a real hassle. So as long as you're mostly looking ahead of you, it's fantastic. Like I'm trying to think if it had any bugs at all. If they are, it's so small. Well, no, it did have some, but I was able to fix that in the settings. I had to turn off like the stability correction stuff that was bugging out. But yeah, I'm kind of living the dream of like seeing the game like I was actually there. Man, I want more of that. I kind of want it only for games I've played or that are specifically designed for VR though, because because it would be kind of too disorienting if it's a game that's like pretty challenging and I don't know what's coming. That'd be kind of rough to experience that in VR like the first go around, I think. But so I think Silent Hill in VR would be next. Well, was it DuckStation does support stereoscopic rendering, and I messed with that a little bit. Not in Silent Hill. I was trying Gran Turismo on it, but the wobble is pretty intense in VR. Now you can do perspective correction, but I remember, I guess it might have been because I was doing a driving game. The camera work was kind of rough. Yeah, I don't know if I didn't try Silent Hill on. Yeah. So yeah, you're probably not going to get full VR on the original Silent Hill, but you could get like the 3D theater effect, or if you just look in front of you, it's in 3D. But yes, if it were a real thing, I would absolutely try being a planeswalker. I mean, That's like fulfilling life goal. Yeah, life purpose. So, what do you what do you feel or would like to say about the official video game Discord servers that deleted links to the EU petition or initiative, I guess? And they're saying they commented in Cyberpunk 2077, Fallout 76 Discord. Yeah, Fallout. I mean, Cyberpunk gets a little. GOG and CD Projekt aren't the problem here. You know, you can still play their games. You're going to be able to. Fallout 76 you'd think that would be a prime candidate because it's absolutely the sort of game that's at risk. But yeah, the reasons where they don't allow petitions. Let's see, and they don't support the message. Well, then they're just, some people are kind of blind, that they can't look ahead is the way I would look at it. Or it's weird. Like I don't know I don't always know the motivations for that. My first reaction is these people aren't going to understand until the game they care about gets shut down, and then they'll get it. But that could be like 10 years from now or something like that. But the other argument is some people just don't care as much. And I can understand that, but if they don't care as much, why would they be mods in a Discord specifically for that game? That's the thing I don't get. Because, that doesn't quite out. Because, look, I understand, while it's not me and it's not my view, I at least can understand the view that some people just want a game to play. And if this game's fun, awesome. If it gets shut down, they're like, whatever, I'll just play another game. I can understand that perspective. I have different feelings because I think some games are incredible experiences I wouldn't ever want destroyed, that there's no substitute for, and I think a lot of people do feel that way. But I can see the more casual crowd not caring about that. But then I wouldn't expect them to be in a Discord specifically for the game that that they probably do care about. So yeah, someone's saying getting it through people's skulls is sometimes frustrating. Yeah, but I don't worry about that too much because I think the people who just don't get it are probably a minority. And our biggest problem is just a lot of people. I think our biggest enemy is people not knowing about this in the first place. Like like if you look at the demographics in this, this is completely vibe based and kind of anecdotal here. But I think the majority of people kind of either don't know about this or just don't care that much either way. It's like maybe they're not a big gamer or maybe they don't game at all and just like, yeah, whatever, this doesn't concern me. And like, okay, I get that. It's not their thing. Like, I mean, there's all kinds of topics I'm not particularly interested in, but that matter to a lot of other people. Or maybe they care like a little bit, but not enough to actually do anything. Like, okay, in which case they're just kind of neutral in all this. They don't really impact anything. I think that's the majority of people. After that, well, no, actually, and then, yeah, that's the majority of people. And the majority of people don't even know about this. And then after that, you have the ones that know about this, but they don't really care that much either way. It's like they could pass the initiative, they can not pass it, whatever. So, okay, I think that's the vast majority. I would think that's probably like 80% of people, maybe more. After that, I think the next biggest block is, yes, people who support this, like, and would sign the initiative if they could or have already signed the initiative. And then I think after that, you have the people who are maybe on the fence about this, and I think that's a small minority, maybe like 3 to 5% of the crowd that know about it. And then after that, you probably have the people who are against this, and I think that's also like minority, like 3 to 5%. The reason I base that is I've looked at some comments about this that I had like no connection to at all. Like it was just in some random forum or on another video mentioning it. And if you look at the commentary, the people who are for it versus against it, it tends to be about like 20-1. I mean, it's over. Maybe sometimes a little less, like 15-1 or something, for like everybody saying, no, we shouldn't do this versus somebody speaking favorably of it in some fashion. It tends to be just overwhelming. So, I mean, I think this is definitely like a populist kind of thing here. So I wouldn't stress out too much about people who aren't interested in it, want to shut it down. I guess, again, the biggest enemy, though, is just getting people aware of it. So, yeah, that is frustrating that, you know, you have gaming discords that are against it or so hesitant about it, but it is what it is, you know. In retrospect, I probably could have framed a few things better, but it's the sort of thing where it was difficult for me to figure out before the fact. You know, like, and the thing is, some of these could have been fixed with a few sentences. Like I mentioned before, like the easy wins. I could have added a sentence saying this situation is already unsettled in the EU. There's not clear law on it. It's a mess to fix up. So if we're coming here proposing a populist initiative that offers to fix it, that's an easy way out compared to trying to figure out how the law pertains to this without that kind of guidance. So, yeah. There's another thing I could have done better on the messaging of. I'm trying to remember. Well, it'll probably come back to me. Yeah, I guess I should have explained more how the citizens, it wasn't it wasn't retroactive. Oh yeah, I guess I should have made it. So that's the thing. When I made the European Citizens Initiative video, I assumed some of my crowd had already seen the previous video, and that was a mistake. I should have started almost from ground zero again, I think, because what I probably would, if I was to like redo that today, what I would have explained is I've been trying to solve this for years. I've been trying to find any progress on this for years, and there is just nothing. And through dumb luck, I found, you know, multiple openings. This is our only chance. If you think that otherwise, just wait. Just try to find any other opening. Like if I had started out with that kind of framing, that probably would have gone a lot better. Because then people would have been, because, you know, the framing makes an incredible difference. So, that's another point I was thinking of. I don't know if I would put that in the initial video or not, but I realized for the people saying that this is too vague, I think they may not realize this, but I think if you were to follow through on that thought, like, okay, let's make it more specific, I think there's literally nothing you could put that they would approve unless it goes even farther than what we're doing. Because, like I mentioned in the video fact, you know, I made the analogy to like probable cause. It's like, okay, well, what exactly would you say to make this more specific that would still solve the problem? And because we're saying the games need to be in a reasonably playable state, you know, when support ends. So the vague part there is reasonably playable state. That is a little broad, you know, that's not clearly defined. Okay, so we should just say works 100% as the game did and contains all features as when it was sold. Okay, well now that's going farther than what we're asking for. So, and my reasoning is, so if you're thinking that you're hesitant about this because it's not clear enough, well then you're going to be even more scared of something that says the developers that every feature has to be there that was there when they were supporting it, which I think is a bigger ask. So, I'll get to some of the questions later. I noticed in the chat there. But so I think for people saying this is too vague or too broad, there is literally nothing we could have written for how the process works in the EU that they would have been satisfied with. By all means, prove me wrong. If somebody wants to have this, I'll have a public discussion on this. But I mean, I was thinking in my head, what could we have said that was more specific that would have still solved this? And I couldn't think of anything, unless it went even farther. So that's another point I might have kind of put in there had I known what the opposition might have been like. But yeah, it is what it is. So just, I wouldn't be discouraged about that. I think for every one person that is like against this and wants to shut it down, I think there's 20 people who have never even heard of it. So it's, mentioning this in areas that might not hear this message, I think is the best thing you could do. Maybe, yeah, I think anything related to like right to repair or digital rights is a shoo-in. But sometimes gaming's a big arena. Maybe we can mention this more in like hardcore sim gaming fans, that they might be out of the loop on a lot of other gaming topics, and they're more in their own kind of news, that sort of thing, where this might not have made it there. Or I don't know, gamers I'm unlikely to reach, that sort of thing. Okay, I should get to more questions. Would you consider having your videos on Warp Sharp with ProtoWeb? Yeah, maybe. Well, there's two things. One, there's my videos in general. I'm fine with uploading them somewhere else, but that's kind of a hassle. So I probably should do it somewhere, but the thing with all these other video streaming services is you're not sure which ones are going to survive like long term, because the last time I moved all my videos to another network besides YouTube was blip.tv, and then it got shut down, I think, a few months afterwards. So all that just went down the drain. So I kind of have some hesitancy about that. Now, the other thing is with the Phantasmagoria 2 episode specifically, because that one's been banned from YouTube because it's too much whatever. I mean, they're saying nudity, but that could be it, but there could be other things too, because that game in general tests the limits. So we would need a video streaming network that is perfectly fine with what we would be considered R-rated content. So there's some nudity, there's definitely gore, there's some kind of implied sex scenes, language. So it's like kind of, it's the sort of thing where even if there's alternatives to YouTube, they may not accept stuff that's like a little too controversy for them. So yeah, like even the reason they gave a timestamp as to which part, but then they also said in the message, however, there may be others that also violate this. So they were leaving themselves an out that even if I were to censor that part, no, it might still get taken down later. I just didn't even want to play that game. So somebody's saying Pornhub. I don't think this will work for Pornhub. It's not pornographic enough for Pornhub. Like, I'm not sure this would qualify. So it's, it's really not porn. There's one scene that's, I mean, geez, depending on the movie, depending on the censor, the scene that they're going nuts about, depending on the censor, you might even be able to get away with this in a PG-13 movie. But for sure, I think it's like R-rated, level. And as a whole, no way is Phantasmagoria 2 a PG-13 experience, but just the one scene that they're freaking out over. Whatever. The script was even written assuming it wasn't going to get censored, so it'd be even more awkward having it censored, but I don't know where exactly to upload that. However, you can download it and watch it. It's on the Curse Forums website. I have a link to it. I'm also going to give it a mention in a future. I'll for sure mention in the follow-up episode of Game Dungeon. Okay. Watching any good movies this October? Probably will. I've been kind of scraping the barrel on movies, though. Let's see. I guess the best thing I've watched recently, I haven't finished it. I've been kind of turning more towards shows since there's tons of shows that. Was somebody saying, didn't I make a censored version for Magda? Yeah, but I only censored out the gore, you know, for Magda's version, you know. And but the what? Oh yeah, the show I saw that was I can give a recommendation. That, even though I haven't finished it, is what All of Us Are Dead. It's a Korean zombie movie or show. It's continuous, so it's basically like one long movie. And yeah, there's a. I'm skipping parts because there's plenty of like high school drama parts in there too, which I'm just skipping right over. But the rest of it, there's some pretty first-rate zombie scenes in there. So yeah, it's a solid watch. Yeah, that would be my advice. If there's too much drama in it for you to kind of pad out the length, just skip right through it, and then you'll probably enjoy the rest of it. So yeah, I'll give that my yeah I would give that a thumbs up. It's not so good. I'm not skipping scenes, but the rest of it's pretty solid. The CIA always has pretty good comments. They say they only watch Tarkovsky's Stalker on infinite loop. Yeah, fun times. I'm sure. All right. All right. What? Oh yeah. Okay. Trying to find my spot here. Today, everyone is very familiar with the concept of online influencers, but I'm curious if this is something you ever experienced during your earlier days on the internet. When's the earliest time that you felt like you looked up to someone online? Well, I mean, I wasn't using the internet until I was a teenager, and even then it was kind of pretty early on. I think okay, if I'm thinking of like the first person I was looking, yeah, we're talking about like the first person I was looking up to on the internet. You know, it might have been, there's a chance it might have actually been Alexander Brandon because I emailed him. And I was, about how the soundtrack I bought to Unreal had like a pop in the track. And I was asking about that. So that wasn't like he wasn't an influencer or anything, but that might have been the first, because yeah, I admire his music. I think he's made tons of amazing music. And just through dumb luck, I've actually had the opportunity to talk to him. Thanks to Tom White on his interview. He let me tag along for that. So yeah, that might have been the first one. Just because I think he's made lots of fantastic music. But yeah, I contacted him, and that was my first kind of person I looked up to that I contacted on the internet, I think. But so that would have been like late 90s, like maybe 98, around there, 99. But for like somebody who might meet the closer to the definition of an online influencer, see, I probably would have been in my 20s by the time that was like kind of taken off. So I wouldn't be as easily influenced. But I think for sure one of the bigger ones would have been James Rolfe, of the Angry Video Game Nerd, or originally the Angry Nintendo Nerd. I mean, his videos pretty early on were just like great. I mean, I love them. Although I haven't watched a lot of his lately because I kind of stopped watching when people because I felt like they were getting kind of weaker. But when I learned that he was no longer writing them, no longer writing the episodes, and I was like, well, what's the point then? I mean, because that's the strength. Because yeah, it's not like every episode was a home run, but I thought they were all pretty great until like some point where they just started feeling a lot weaker. And then I found out later he wasn't writing those. So it's like, well, I want to hear what he has to say. So, and I mean, again, it's sort of blurring the line. Not exactly influencer, but I was definitely a fan of like especially the early Red versus Blue episodes. Those are another ones that I definitely admired their work. That was another one where they started losing me later when they got more dramatic, and I liked that. Like, no, let's just keep it like fun. Like, this is totally better without the drama, and let's just have it fun. Like, so I guess those are the early ones I can think of. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's any others. There probably are a few, but those are the ones. So somebody's saying it got weaker back when his kid was born. Well, I mean, the thing is, even a lot of the weak episodes are still pretty good, but like some of them, it's like it's not even like for me the appeal of him isn't like the language actually. It's just the seeing him get pissed off and just or just increasingly upset about all the crap in the game. So even if he did have to tone down the language, as long as like the emotion's still coming out about like this game, or yeah, you want the passion from him either way is what, and you don't have to have like the language can certainly assist that, but you kind of want to see like how he feels about this game, and like like I remember there was one scene where he was playing one of the newer, well, not now, I guess it was Super Nintendo, one of the Mega Man games, and he keeps getting smacked with like a tutorial, like every tutorial box, like every 20 seconds. And he say, "Can I just play the game? Can I just play the," like, and it just really, like the look on his face looks like desperate. And yeah, and see that has like a lot of the draw of this, or just like, or just for the what the hell moments, like where he can't believe what he's seeing on screen. To me, that's a huge part of the draw for me for angry video game nerds. So even if that got toned down because of his kid, and I could see that, and just him going on the tirade of the foul language, that never did much for me, but I can see where his fans might be into that. But I also like I love this more weird, ambitious stuff too, where like he would, like in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre episode, where he had people pretending to be like the characters from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then Leatherface getting stuck on the wheelchair, like it does in the game, or there was one that cracked me up, was he was doing a Christmas episode where he was reviewing these various kind of off the beaten path consoles, and one of them he's waiting a long time for the game to load, and then Christmas music starts playing, and he's kind of like looking around and reflecting, and then he looks up to the ceiling, and you see this dent in the ceiling, and then all of a sudden you get a flashback of when he's fighting Bugs Bunny in a previous episode, and like the head slams into the ceiling where it happened, and then it just cuts back, like, that part cracked me up so hard. So yeah, it's the hyperscan. Thanks from the chat there. So yeah, yeah, for me, the draw of it isn't actually the language. The language can certainly assist, but it's just the authentic. When somebody's upset with something, it's always the most entertaining to watch when this person is like a true fan of this, or they want it to be a true fan, because it's gonna hit them so much deeper, and you can see the emotion it's coming from. Like I've seen people complain about Star Wars before, and like I think Star Wars is all right. Especially I like the older movies and some of the games, but like I'm not a mega fan. But when you see, or Bethesda is another one I've seen. When you see the mega fans start complaining about this, you can see it's hitting them on a much deeper level, and they're like, there's a level of bitterness that just a casual enjoyer would not have, and it's, I don't know. I guess it's sort of like misery loves company kind of thing, where it's I can enjoy seeing that sort of thing, where yeah, like let's see where something bugs me, but for them it's like an atrocity. so so they're gonna verbalize this better than I ever would. So or maybe if I don't even care about that, seeing how passionate they are about it, I can respect that. Yeah. Oh, that's another one. Spoonie. Yeah, I watched some of the early. I still need to catch up on a lot of those Spoonie One videos. Uh, yeah, I saw a few of his videos. I saw a good chunk of his Final Fantasy VIII videos that were pretty. There was a lot of funny stuff in those. Again, I actually only watched a little bit of his Phantasmagoria stuff because I liked the game too much. So it's like, he was making all these jokes and they were funny, but I was just like, at that time, I felt like the game barely got the recognition it deserved. So it's like, oh man, it's kind of rough that they're only seeing this through the lens of like, because it does have the cheesy elements, but it has like so many other good stuff too. So yeah, you're right. Noah I always forget how to pronounce his name. Antweiler or yeah, Spoonie One though. Yeah, he had good early. I forgot about that. Yeah, that was another early like influencer stuff that I liked. Well, there's also I guess a little later, but Angry Joe. That was another one I need to catch up on. And really, from when I stopped watching it, his quality hadn't declined at all. So it's just I just got busy with other stuff and just didn't get around to coming back to it. So yeah, no, Angry Joe has lots of great stuff. It's yeah, yeah. Somebody's saying Ross cannot say what Michiel van de Bo correctly either. I probably can't. I probably am mispronouncing his name also, but that's the other composer who did a lot on Deus Ex and Unreal also, along with Alexander Brandon. You're right. I'm probably butchering his name again. Yeah. So yeah, there's probably a few others I'm forgetting, but yeah, those are all examples of early YouTube or not even YouTube at that time, but early online video people that resonate that I liked and their stuff. So and I screwed it up again. He's not French, he is Dutch. Okay, well. Oh well. Let's see. Oh geez, I missed this question. What games did you have the most fun wow moments on your first playthrough? There's a lot. Okay, well, Symphony of the Night, Castlevania, Subnautica. I'm trying to think of like some wow. Honestly, for wow moments, Crisis, like the scene where the mountain starts breaking apart, like that got a wow out of me. Yeah. Yeah. What are some other wow moments? I know there's more. Well, honestly, original Unreal. Like once you get to like the spire and then like the islands and the clouds. Yeah. Well, I guess original Half-Life when you finally go to Zen. I wasn't expecting that when I played that. That got a wow moment out of me. Serious Sam, for sure. I mean, seeing the bosses. Yeah, like the finale of the first encounter and really a lot. I mean, maybe not the highest level because it wasn't the first game, but I think almost all the Serious Sams have great wow moments. let's see, what are some others? A little bit of Bulletstorm. Like Bulletstorm definitely had wow moments, but like I didn't like the gameplay quite as much. So that kind of held it back a little bit for me to kind of get completely immersed. But tons, and honestly, that's something I'm getting. I'm getting double again by replaying some games in VR that have great environments because yeah, those give me wow moments also. So. Let's see. Yeah, but we're talking dozens, so I'm just not remembering all of them off the top of my head. But yeah, maybe I can try to think of more recent ones. Yeah, this is the sort of thing where I should have like a list of all the games I've played, so I could just scroll through. That'd be the fastest way for me to. Oh, and Resident Evil 2 original. I remember the scene where I think that was like I think there actually might have been one or two since then, but for the longest time, that was one of the scenes to get like a true, just complete jump out of me, where you're going through this hallway that there's in the police station that there's a lot of enemies in, and you've cleared them out, and then you come back, there's a few more enemies, and you clear them out again, and then from there you're kind of going back and forth a few times, and then just bam, and like the zombies stick their arms through the windows and grab you. It's like I didn't see that coming at all, and that just caught me completely blindsided. So that one stood out to me. Actually, more recently, yeah, I have to admit it did get a bit of a jump out of me. I played was it the game Bloodwash? It was a jump scare, and I think they kind of went I think they raised the volume a little too high for it, but it was just like a hobo in a closet. But man, the way they presented it, it's just like, bam, like just right in your face. So, let's see. Okay. We're saying most fun moments. Well, again, there's so many games. I mean, it's. I'd have to make a list. You know, I think I am going to do that list sometime when I have a little more free time. Is like my favorite games by year. So not the year I've played them, but like if the game came out in '96 or something and I played it for the first time this year, I would list it for like, favorite game for '96 or something like that. I think I am going to start making that list and just update it every few months or something like that. So, let's see. Yeah. Okay. Some of these are repeat questions. I have not seen the movie Frankenstein Unbound, and apparently it's free to watch, and they give a link. Elaborating on that, what's your favorite terrible movie? Well, I haven't seen a ton just straight up, but for the ones I have, it'd probably be Troll 2, which is a fascinating movie. But I have seen a lot via Mystery Science Theater 3000, and there's so many to pick from there. Because some of those movies can be kind of so bad they're good already, and then they just take it to new heights. Like it's probably nothing that you haven't heard already on some of the favorites, like Space Mutiny, or was The Last Sacrifice. That one's really good. I think it was like Jack Frost or something like that. It was one of the ones with Mike. There's so many. Like I don't think I've missed. That's another series I need to catch up and finish off eventually. Mystery Science Theater 3000, but I don't think I've ever seen like a bad episode. Mystery Science. There's just varying degrees of okay versus incredible for Mystery Science Theater 3000, and the okay ones are kind of rare. Usually they're good. So Yeah, I mean, there's so many. Mystery Science Theater 3000 is a series that just it's like the fairy tale that they weave straw into gold is what I think they do. It's like cultural recycling in like the best possible way. Yeah, repurposing it. They're recycling terrible movies into something fantastic. Yeah, I think Ega was another one. Was that the one with like the caveman thing? With like the wowie wow wow. Okay. Okay, next question. For all the ups and downs of the Final Fantasy series, its music remains high quality, in their opinion. Do you have any experience with it? Opinions on it? That's a series I plan to kind of go through the soundtracks of. I've heard some of them. However, I will say, I mean, it's not bad, but I never thought it was that great. It'll, it won't happen, but I'll be fine if I never have to hear the old Final Fantasy combat music again, like the da 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 da. That one. I've heard without even trying to. I've heard that way too many times. Like yeah, for the Final Fantasies, I tried playing a few hours of Final Fantasy VI until I finally gave up on it. Um, but I recently watched a playthrough, or recently, months back, I watched a playthrough of 10. I was kind of curious. I plan to give the remake of 7 a try at some point, eventually. And I might watch some playthroughs of some of the others, like maybe the ones, because Final Fantasy is something where I'm not, like, I think a lot of the Final Fantasy stuff has a lot of stuff I would gladly skip over, but I like when they get weird and out there with the story, and I like the environment. So Final Fantasy has always been like kind of a half interest in me. But for the soundtracks, 10 had a lot of cool stuff in it. It definitely made me interested in the soundtrack. Not every, not everything, but it's like it felt like a mix of some stuff that's really good and some stuff that's like pretty experimental. So it's like not my thing, but I respect that they were trying. Um, what and 6, like I like the main theme of 6, like that opening where they're marching in the mechs. For it, I like the main theme of Final Fantasy. But yeah, I got Final Fantasy. All the Final Fantasies I've heard, and I need to hear more. They're a mix. Like there'll be some tracks I really like, some I don't really care for, and then a lot of them that are just kind of like, okay, that's exotic, you know. So yeah, I never felt like the quality was low. It's just gonna have different taste on different tracks. So, um, yeah, that's because yeah, that's when I'm kind of I'm always been kind of half interested in Final Fantasy. That's the way to put it. And there's no way I'm gonna play the turn-based combat ones now, but that's the older ones, and I could still watch a playthrough of them or something like that. So, and of course, going back to Spoonie 1, geez, it might be kind of hard to find it now, but in his original version of his Final Fantasy VIII, in the scene where they have to face off against the giant mech spider, he had this long sequence where he had the Will Smith version of Wild Wild West. So, and it just went together like like two peas in a pod. It was perfect. It's like Wild Wild West, and it has like the speed up turn-based combat of them fighting the spider, them running from it, fighting against, and he just goes through the whole song, and you wouldn't be able to do that now on YouTube. So maybe you can hunt down the old school version of his, if he can even find it on the internet now, of his reviews, because that's something where like, yeah, the music really added to it there. Uh, let's see. I have not played Snatcher, so I guess that's another request. Is that the old game that was like in the arcade or maybe even for Nintendo that was sort of like a bootleg thing or that was real gory. I might be mixing it up with another game. I think James Rolfe talked about it in one episode. It might have been James and Mike Mondays rather than Angry Video Game Nerd, but all of his videos on Internet Archive actually. Awesome. I should try to get I should try and get the original Spoonie One videos before they had to be, kind of cut for modern copyright standards. Let's see. But no, well, here, let me just do a search quick. Is that the game I'm thinking of? Oh, no, okay, Snatcher's something different. Okay, yeah, Snatcher's like that, okay, that's a Hideo Kojima one. Yeah, that's the one, that's like the Blade Runner-ish game that looked interesting. Yeah, no, I haven't played that. You're right, it does look interesting. It makes me wonder what game I'm thinking of then. But okay, just because I noticed it in the live chat, they're saying, have I ever had an interest in any Warhammer games? Yeah, definitely. I like Warhammer thematically a bunch. I played some of Total War Warhammer, though that game does have a learning curve. And man, that's another game I'm like half there with because I love the atmosphere. I like some of the gameplay, though it gets a bit much for me. But I feel like I'm kind of yearning for like this kind of storyline to go with it. And it's sort of there, but not really. It's much more about the gameplay. So I've played through Mark of Chaos. Let's see, what's another one? I've played Warhammer 40K Space Marine. I'm kind of half interested in Darktide because I'm not the biggest fan of that kind of Left 4 Dead gameplay format, but I of course want to see the world that they've created for Darktide. I'm definitely interested in Space Marine too. That one's probably going to be that one's probably pretty high for games I'm looking forward to because I found the Space Marine combat all right, but I found the world a little mundane for what they could have done with it. And in Space Marine 2, we have going against swarms of the Tyranids. So I'm thinking, awesome, I want to see this. So, what are some other Warhammer games? Unfortunately, actually, one I might try with mods is Rogue Trader. And that one is turn-based combat, but there was a mod that basically turned it into almost a choose-your-own-adventure kind of game where you make decisions and then they just kind of go and auto-resolve the turn-based combat for you. So I'm thinking, yeah, I might give that a shot. So modded, I might try it out. Because I'm not a big fan of turn-based combat. That's some both Warhammer and Dungeons and Dragons. I feel like our turn-based combat games, that originated before, like the old days. I mean, I guess technically you did have video games, but they were just, bleeps and bloops on the screen back then, kind of Atari level. Where I feel like, they've crafted like these rich worlds and lore and everything for them that now that we do have all this modern technology to throw at them, they're a fantastic fit for real-time combat. So even if they are, originated and were always turn-based, the setting they have is a perfect fit to actually manifest these universes in the way that maybe the authors would have if they had the technology back in the day. So, okay, yeah, say Mordheim. Yeah, I think that's another turn-based one. So yeah, I am interested in it, but it's like maybe I'll just have to watch a playthrough of it then, because I really am not a big fan of turn-based combat, and a lot of Warhammer games are turn-based combat. So I've kind of really only dipped my foot into the pool of like the real-time combat ones. But what are some other Warhammer games? Well, I've played. Yeah, bringing it back to Stop Killing Games. I played some of what Age of Reckoning or the mod rather Return of Reckoning or Return to Reckoning, where the MMO that they did. So that is an officially shut down game, and the only way you can run that now is through a server emulator. So, and that had a fantastic world. That's another one I'd love to run around in VR because the world is fantastic in it. So, yeah, it's where somebody was talking about like the turn-based combat. It's some things are turn-based combat, but they kind of fit that mold to it. Like, okay, I'm sure there's better examples, but I'm thinking of something like chess. Yes, you could make chess real-time combat, but that wouldn't work out. It's a poor fit. It kind of fits the spirit of it having turn-based or Go or something. I'm trying to think of like some other turn-based combats that they're kind of, or maybe like card games, even something like Magic the Gathering, that kind of fit that. But again, probably other examples, but Warhammer and Dungeons and Dragons feel like they're a fantastic fit to have real time and manifest these worlds in a way that you could only imagine back in the day. So it's like we're unshackling it and unleashing the idea of what these what's the word, universes or intellectual properties could be. It's like they started off restrained, and even though there's a lot of appreciation for that classic style, we could unleash them and take them to who knows what heights, by throwing computer games at them and where you can do anything just about. So, okay, more questions. Someone wants to know how my day is going. It's going okay. Yeah, I will say that at the expense of pissing people off and getting videos out slower, I am actually having free time at the end of pretty much every day lately this month. And I kind of want to continue that. So I like having some free time. That's how I've been able to play some games and watch movies. So. Let's see. Did you do the map edits for Freeman's Mind 2, or does somebody else do them? No, for 2, it's mostly been, I think, Toby Eichhorst. It's usually in the credits. I haven't done big map edits, I think, since Civil Protection. Because I can do it, but it's like, man, it's hard to explain. When you haven't done something for a while, I think I could get back into the flow of it pretty rapidly. I mean, from having done a lot of it, like, working in Hammer and that sort of thing. However, what would not be rapid would be getting all my assets together so that they play nice and making sure all the functions work, since I haven't touched this in years and years. And like, that can be a real deterrent. So, but I mean, I don't really miss mapping. I'm happy to have somebody else do it who's better at it than I am. So it's okay. We kind of answered this earlier about Phantasmagoria 2, though they're talking about PeerTube. Well, same issue as the others. It's like, well, if it lasts, maybe, and would they be cool with basically R-rated content, uncensored R-rated content? So. Okay, well, somebody's asking about the videos getting shoutier. They think I haven't been like that for some episodes. They're saying Test Drive 3 is perfect. Okay, so I'll have to, maybe I'll rewatch that. It's kind of painful watching my old stuff. Not because I think it's bad, but I just have a mental block against listening to my voice. It's different when I'm editing. Like, it doesn't bother me the same way. When I'm editing, it's more like I'm putting together like a puzzle or something, or just a project. But then once it's done, I've watched it, part of me never wants to hear myself again. So I don't know. It's mostly my voice. I just don't. I don't know. But yeah, maybe I'll rewatch some of Test Drive 3 to give myself some vocal cues. I hope I'm not too shouty in the Halloween episodes. So I think it's all right. You know. We've successfully developed a rocket that lands after takeoff and can be reused. How do you feel about the significance of this achievement? Do you see space travel making huge advances in the near future because of this? Well, the answer to the second question, no. But I kind of feel like we're too early on this. It's not that we couldn't do it. It's more like I think it's a poor allocation of resources considering where our society's at the moment. Because like if we really, really wanted to, yes, I think we could put somebody on Mars or something. But why? What's the practical benefit of that? Especially weighed against the resources. I think for space, what makes way more sense for space exploration are things like probes and maybe like space telescopes or something like that. At this point in time, I don't think there's a lot of point to putting people into space. I mean, other than just psychological symbolism. I mean, it's I don't know. Now, if we could travel to other star systems, I think that would be something. But we're so far away from that. Like I heard a good analogy. I may have mentioned this before, where somebody was comparing. I think it was for something else, but saying like, let's say you were in like ancient Greek times and you were really interested in air travel. Well, I think they were saying a lot of air travel today kind of. Well, I guess you might have been able to do something with balloons, huh? But I guess we didn't know about that, or probably didn't know about that then. But okay, let's say barring balloons, a lot of air travel depends on having light frames for planes, that sort of thing. Well, for that you need a better metallurgy process to process aluminum or something like that, and that technology wasn't really known at the time. But what did help develop that was kind of trade around the world, or the known world. So really, if you wanted to accelerate the process of air travel and you were in ancient Greek times, you would probably do more in the long term by refining like naval travel, and trade, or maybe looking into metallurgy, expanding trade so that more cultures do have access to more materials, or you're able to develop civilization so that more people can be educated and try to make more discoveries and that sort of thing. And I think that I think that's kind of the mentality we should take towards space travel. Like in the long term, yes, we absolutely need space travel for like a generation ship to be built. But in the short term, in the near term, the medium term, it's not very practical to do that. And we have a lot of problems on Earth as it is that I think we need to take care of that are more pressing. So I think we should continue doing space research. But sending people into space, I think that's really limited. The payoff, we're just in the wrong era for that. For that to be practical. Now, for reusing rockets, that is an advancement, and that's good. However, I think we're also going to be facing a resource collapse at some point in the future, maybe to a large degree within our lifetimes. So it's like, this is... On one hand, things like satellites can be insanely useful for just a lot of things. So it does make sense to kind of pursue that, but I kind of feel like we have a lot of challenges coming that we should be giving more thought about what we're expending resources on. However, like I said, satellites can be incredibly useful for a lot of things. So yes, being able to kind of get them into orbit, that is a practical thing. So I think it is good and advances things, but space travel, I think it's kind of folly at this period in time, you know. Okay, so somebody's saying they feel like we'll always have problems on Earth. That's no reason to halt space travel. Okay, well, what's more important, having enough resources to feed a population or to launch another rocket into space? You go far enough into time, you might actually be having to make decisions like this. See, that's the thing. So no, the reason is we don't have unlimited resources. Some resources are basically renewable and they'll be here forever if we're smart about them. Others, we kind of use them and we're done, or at least done for tens of thousands of years. So it's a resource allocation. I think space research warrants enough continued development that we shouldn't halt it. But like space travel, like why? I mean, because like, I mean, I haven't checked lately, but like as an example, I'm tempted to check. Okay, weren't we running out of helium, like so that we would have to like scoop it from the atmosphere if we wanted to get more now? But we were basically using it up on balloons and stuff, like party balloons. Let's see, news. Man, I'm kind of blinded here. I don't know, but okay. I think at one point we were running low on helium, and I think there are other maybe minerals we are. My understanding is the longer we go on, this happens to more and more minerals or chemicals or something, where we run out of the resources to keep them going. Oh yeah. Oh man, where did I hear that? Okay, I completely forget where I heard it, but okay, yeah, see, that's a great example. Okay, somebody's saying helium is screwed and MRI machines use like 30% of it. Okay, so which is more important, having party balloons that float from helium or having MRI scans? That's what I mean. Like the MRI scans, it's just like, there's no question that's more important. And space travel is incredible, very, very resource intensive. So I'm not informed enough to know exactly which resources it would threaten and over which time period. Like, see, for some things, they're probably not an issue, like the hydrogen fuel, assuming we have the energy, because we can make hydrogen from electrolysis of water. We're not running out of hydrogen anytime soon. However, that takes a hell of a lot of energy to produce that. So, yeah, rocket fuel might not be in big demand, but the energy production, that's been a constant kind of challenge for civilization as the stuff, okay, I'm losing my words here, but you get the idea what I was saying, that civilization develops, energy constraints are an ongoing issue. So I think there needs to be given more and more thought to that sort of thing. And actually, I agree with this. They're saying any industry related to entertainment and cosmetics will have to be demolished too. Well, not necessarily demolished, but severely restrained. And yes, I agree. I think that's where we do have to think more of that. Let's see. Okay, but I think I heard it on some podcast, but the analogy, one thing I heard was that like when we had a lot of the resource shortages from the supply chain disruption from the pandemic, the example they were giving was that this actually had a big a big impact on pork because, or maybe it might have been some other animals, because the way the industrial farming was set up, this is kind of a morbid example, but the machines they were using to kind of puncture their heads to have a quick death for the animal used a certain gas, and that gas was no longer available from the supply chain. And because they weren't set up to do it, I guess, with a sledgehammer or something, that held up the production of the meat, and then that it has a cascading effect. our level of civilization is incredibly delicate, you know, and this is, I guess this, hey, another thing you can email me on, rosswscott@gmail.com. I keep having this like gnawing thought in the back of my head that I really should be doing more to just try to make like kind of more preliminary plans for what to do if, like, let's say the supply chain just gets really screwed by something. So the groceries are empty and they're not going to come back anytime soon. It'd be great to have like more kind of figure out more contingency plans. I feel like the best thing is kind of like, you know, safety in numbers for people who are all relatively on the same page for this sort of thing. So like the intentional communities. So I kind of feel like I should get more of that. Like right now I have like I have a very half-assed level of prepping where I have multiple bags of dried rice that can stay good for like decades as I understand it. So, but yeah, I should do more things. I have a stockpile of a few supplies, but not nearly enough. So, yeah, but that's no. You're right about entertainment, and yeah, you mentioned lots of things. It doesn't mean we need to halt it, but it means like we should figure out. I feel like the way we do things now, there's almost no consideration for how sustainable this is in the future other than we just look at the price of the materials today or what they're likely to be next quarter. And that's just that's like sleepwalking off a cliff is the way I look at that. And I feel like we should give a lot more considerations of like how we do things, what's essential, what's not, where our biggest biggest vulnerabilities, that sort of thing. And space travel seems like is one of those things where it seems very resource intensive and kind of indulgent for what we're doing with it. Like it's like the air travel in the ancient Greek times. Yeah, I think that analogy is decent. So yeah, see somebody's mentioning that the Ogala aquifer draining for another resource that we're losing. Yeah, water. Like, what's the future of the Southwest in the United States look like? I mean, I don't know. It's yeah, I don't know. It's okay. We have a kind of a doomer comment. There's only one thing to do once humanity collapses: sit down, tell your wife you love her, and consider if it's worth it. Man, that's not how I'm wired. I have, look, I don't always know what I'm doing, but I have stronger survival instincts than that. That's, your talk, okay, some people do think the way you're thinking. No way, man. I would have to be in like just an abject state of torture before I would even think like that. Okay, like, no, I'm all for survival, just all the way, really. And I'd rather have it be nicer and not. That's a doomer. See, that's the thing. I'm not a doomer, actually. I can agree with the diagnosis of many doomers, but I am not a doomer. I'm all for surviving. Okay. In fact, I find it kind of mystifying that some people think like that. So. And I'm a much bigger fan of doing things the easier way rather than the hard way. So, and in this case, that involves kind of having to prepare a lot more. Okay, I guess a few more questions. Let's see. I think I'll start skipping some more now. Yeah, somebody's asking like what kind of vehicle I would see myself in. Just something cheap and durable, maybe a Mazda or something. As many driving games, yeah, it's ironic. As many driving games as I've played, my car knowledge is quite basic, if not novice level. It's like I almost don't care sometimes. I'm just like, yeah, I'm in a car driving fast, awesome. So, or it's a cool environment. Get to see, we get to go down this giant hill and switchbacks or try to cut ahead of this. It's a very low brow approach to this, and uh, it's probably disappointing to people who are real like gearheads and aficionados of it. But hey, we both like good car games, you know. So it's like a Zen diagram, you know. I mean, not a Zen, a Venn diagram. We both like great car games and cars. I like other car aspects. I like watching like some of Top Gear because just the presentation is so good in that show that it's fun to watch it even if I don't particularly care about the details. And some of them are more fun. Yeah. So they were saying that I almost didn't even mention the choice of cars in the crew episode. Well, I tried to do a little bit with that where I kept switching my car to something that might fit. It wasn't always a fit, but that might fit the area. Like I had a sports car in LA and Miami, and I had like a more kind of more energy friendly compact car when I was in Seattle. And I had like the Hummer in Texas. I had a pickup truck when we're allegedly in like West Virginia and stuff like this. So I tried to theme it a little bit from the cars I was doing. Stuff that's sort of stereotypical cars you are more likely to see in certain areas. Like it didn't track 100%, but I tried to have a little bit of that. So let's see. Okay, we have a long question here. They're asking if I do requests for Game Dungeon. I might at some point. I've thrown them all into like a email folder. Okay, well, yeah, this person was asking. They were mentioning a lot of games. I was thinking, wow, I haven't heard of these. And I looked them up, and they're all like very heavily anime themed ones, and that tends to not be my thing. I'm afraid. I guess unless it's like the soundtrack or the environments. Because I can like that from almost any game. But they were wondering about my preferences. Watch Ross's big game list. In the middle of that, I have like a list of stuff I tend to be biased towards and biased against in games. It doesn't mean I think they're bad. They're just my personal preferences. So. Okay, somebody's saying they like to own Steam games they bought without DRM. And they've heard of Steamless, but no one online is willing to explain what it is or how it works. Well, they want to play the games offline without Steam, just like GOG. Can you offer some advice, please? This is the sort of thing where I probably should be careful how much I say, because if I go too far, it might go against YouTube terms of service. But I can give some like basic approaches to it. First, you might not be able to do that for all your games. Well, no, you might be able to if it's just Steam DRM, because lots of games on Steam have Steam DRM and they have other DRM. And like if there's no crack for that, then you might not have an option. What? Okay, I'll push back against something I saw in the comments. They're saying Ross knows weebs will be the first to go once humanity collapses. Not necessarily. You know, some of these people are real chill and like gardening or planning things. You think that's not a useful skill to have? Oh yeah, we don't want the guy who knows all about gardening and planting crops. Like, you know. So no, I would, or maybe they're good at like repairing clothes, you know, or, you know, people who are like more chill games or like that's also incredibly useful in a system with a lot of societal collapse. So you need because I think being in a community of a bunch of people who loves, was it Stardew Valley? I think that might be a great community to be with if there was a apocalypse, because they probably have a lot of overlap between enjoying, you know, planting things and growing actual food. So. But okay, so for Steamless DRM, okay, maybe you can't find some. I'd say check more communities and maybe you can find someone offering more help on it. But Steamless, I think, it's a program on GitHub. Here, I'll link to Steamless in the description. Where I haven't checked it in a while, but it's basically software that's designed to remove the DRM component for Steam games. Now, for just Steam stuff that you can run it offline. And you may not even need this for some Steam games. Some of them, they never had Steam DRM. You can just download them. You can run them offline. You don't even need Steam running. So, I mean, I would just do more searches for remove Steam DRM and just see where it takes you. I think you'll find something if you spend enough time on it. I mean, look, I did not know, well, even though I still haven't figured it out completely, for the outpainting, I did not know how to do that when I started, but I spent a few hours kind of learning how to do it, some trial and error, and I came up with pretty good results. It's just the color just wouldn't match. So I'm still trying to figure that out, but spend some time researching it, I guess, is maybe you'll discover. So that's the thing, even if I know of a resource, that might be outdated 5 years later, and then I'm giving you bad information, because this is stuff that can kind of flow to different places. So by doing the research, you'll kind of, get into it some more yourself, or maybe somebody in the comments will give you better advice. But somebody's asking about Windows 10 supporting ending in under a year. Any more thoughts on your next step? I'll probably just stay on Windows 10 until I have a major reason not to. And maybe even wait till I have multiple major reasons not to. So, I mean, I guess if I go far enough in the future, eventually hardware will stop supporting it. You need Windows 11 drivers, but look, I can go years after when support ends. That's not an issue. And it might be a while because I've heard the new cards from NVIDIA, rumor has it they're going to have that same damn 12-volt high power connector again. The one that can start fires, and they're upping the wattage. And the thing is, I'm sure for these cards, if you plug them in nice and snug and leave them there, they'll probably be fine for 6 months or something. But are they going to be fine for 6 years? Or are they going to start smoking? Or I just don't. They're putting more watts through these, and the wires are smaller, and they're bunched closer together. Like I just don't trust it. So I'm probably not going to be upgrading my video card anytime soon, especially not to the. Well, I guess there was a 4070 that used the old power connector, so that one might be okay. But I think the 5000 series isn't going to use it, so I'm probably not going to be upgrading anytime soon. I mean, I guess I could upgrade my CPU, but it's still fine. I mean, for most things. Oh, shoot. Okay. Oh, man, I meant to look that up and have a link for it. This question. Okay, maybe I can look up this question real quick, or this visual aid for this. Let me find it. I have to. I sent a link of this to my wife, and she liked it. The question is, have you ever taken a psychedelic before? The answer is no. I've never ever really had an interest in them. But what this goes back to, if I can find the link, oh, come on, is I saw this testimonial from this person who it sounded like they were in touch with like these tech entrepreneurs, like this kind of Silicon Valley types. Okay, yeah, here it is. Okay, here's the exact quote. I'll give a link to it in the chat too. I'll put this in the description later. Of the Silicon Valley founders I know who went on some of the psychedelic self-discovery trips, almost 100% quit their jobs as CEO within a year. Could be random anecdotes, but be careful with that stuff. And I think I have heard on a podcast before, somebody was talking about like how like mushrooms just change their whole perspective on everything. And I'm thinking, you know, one thing I've always wondered is if you're okay, maybe they might not have been if you're like a entrepreneur, you know, starting off like it, but if you're established tech entrepreneur and you know you already have more money than like you're set for life. Like, why the hell would you want to keep being a CEO? Like, that's always something that's baffled me because I was thinking, like, so you can do anything you want now, just about. I mean, maybe if there was like a product you felt like was really gonna change the world in like a positive way, but most products aren't like that at all. Uh, so, and even then, you know, I mean, wouldn't you want to be involved more with like, well, I guess the CEO might have the design authority or something. Yeah, somebody's saying power. And yeah, so it's probably part of your power. So the people who are CEOs, a lot of them, it feels like their brains are going to be in such a different place than mine would. So if those types of people are taking psychedelics, that might open up something that they just never knew was there. So there might be something to that. I don't know. To me, it doesn't have a lot of appeal. I mean, because it could like, I guess, weird me out and make it feel like I'm perceiving reality in a different way. I think that would just be kind of freaky more than anything else. I mean, and then if I wouldn't want anything that might have like a permanent side effect. So I don't know. Like, I mean, I guess like the drugs I've just had just like a conceptual interest in would be, I mean, I've never tried it, but something like ecstasy, because the idea is that would make you just feel amazing. But then I pretty quickly learned that would like burn out, like that can like burn out the pleasure centers of your brain. I'm thinking, well, no, I don't want to friggin' overclock my brain and burn it out that way. So that makes me lose interest in it. I did have an interest in laughing gas, nitrous oxide, because I like the idea of not being able to stop laughing. I think that would be fun. Um, I mean, if it was medicinal, it'd be different, but. Oh yeah, well, someone's asking, will I still do the scary movie recommendations for Halloween still? Not this year. I might, yeah, I need to revise that list, but yeah, I might do that some year if I get more editing help. That's something I might do with editing help. I don't want to edit that one myself if I do it. Let's see. But it's, yeah, so I'm afraid I'm the wrong guy to ask about drugs, but I did see that comment. I thought that was hilarious. Let's see. But yeah, I would recommend if this is by no means like a truth or anything like that, but I would recommend if you're someone who is hyper focused on business activities and maybe power for that matter, and like just imagine you have all the power, all the money, what would you do? And if it would feel, if you feel like the answer, you would feel kind of lost, maybe you do have something in your brain that could, maybe the right pharmaceuticals or possibly drugs could unlock. Yeah, you know, that's, I have no idea, but that's just like a really rough theory I might have, so. Okay, any more questions? Are there things you ascribe credit to for yourself, or do you mostly consider what you do as the product of dumb luck? Yeah, and the first reply was they were confused what he meant, and I am also. I think luck has a lot what we do. I will ascribe credit, assuming they follow through, which they may or may not, of the crew 2 and Motorfest getting offline modes. I 100% think that would not be happening without the campaign. So that's kind of a bonus. I think there's very high odds the high quality version of the Sin soundtrack I released, or the Fact 2 soundtrack, probably wouldn't happen, or the Rama one. Same for Bip Bop 1 and 3, though that one's less of a contribution, I think, to the culture. So I think those are all things that I feel like me stepping in might have changed gaming history a tiny bit. But I mean, just by existing, you're impacting some things. But yeah, I was a little confused on this one. All right, I'm gonna skip some more. Do you ever drink caffeine? If so, which source? And if not, why not? Not in a long time, like years. It's caffeine is something where, like, it would have to be like I really, really need to stay up for something, and I've been more trying to just get out of prevent those situations from happening more in the first place, because I hate having to do all-nighters and things like that. When I did take it, I mean, I guess sometimes I would have chocolate, or many years back I would have Dr. Pepper sometimes, or Coke, or Pepsi. I never really had coffee, because coffee felt like, for someone who normally doesn't take caffeine, it just feels like overdrive, and that would just probably make me so nervous I wouldn't be able to focus on anything. Yeah, that's generally why I don't take it, is because it just, I kind of don't want the dependency, and look, just by eating regular food, my mood and behavior can be affected enough by that without having to inject caffeine into it. Although I sort of forced myself to go off chocolate permanently ever since that article came out about letting, was it cadmium, being present in basically every brand of chocolate on the market. So that made me think, well, these are in really small quantities, but 0 would be a lot better than any, about lead or cadmium. So I pretty much permanently quit chocolate. I mean, I like chocolate, but I like not having brain damage better. Okay, a few more questions, and I'll start taking live ones. Let me see. Okay, well, they're asking if I've heard of the game Star Overdrive, which is coming out for Nintendo Switch. Well, I don't have a Switch, but a lot of Switch games come to PC too. I hadn't heard of that one, but it has hoverboards, and it looks like they did it right. I watched the trailer to it. I mean, I'll be perfectly honest, the game looked good and interesting setting. However, it's something where I'm getting picky, where, I get influenced by the mood. And the mood, I didn't really like the mood of this one, because the entire trailer looked like it was between like 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock on like a really sunny day. And I have no idea why, but I've never liked that kind of time when it's like really sunny. I don't know, just like, I like morning light, I like evening light, I like night. Like just real midday, again, like real early afternoon, I've never liked it. I don't know why. I don't know, it has like the psychological kind of blah feeling for me. So there's rare instances where it can feel good and right, but they're very rare for me, like the environment, and that game didn't do it for me. But cool, the game looked good. Like that was like the only thing that kind of turned me off from it. So it looked imaginative, interesting. Probably had a lot of thought into the gameplay, and they looked like they were giving the hoverboard segments decent treatment. So there was another hoverboard game that came out that was kind of like a weird one. I think it had like a cat on it. Masters told me about it multiple times, but I forgot the name of it. That one wasn't quite a traditional hoverboard game, though. It was game for something else. Uh, what was one of the most disappointing things you've ever heard of come from someone uh, that you really respected or liked? I had to think because, believe it or not, even people I like or know of, I don't know like tons about them. I'm not someone who tends to like look up every little detail about somebody. I don't know. It's just, I think it just depends like where your interests lie. And, but I thought of a few examples. One I mentioned before was with Warren Spector, one of the designer of like Deus Ex, where like he was at some conference or speech and one of his fans was asking if he would ever release the source code because the fan really wanted to make a VR mod for it. And Warren Spector said that he thought the guy needed therapy. And I'm thinking, that's such a prick response. You know, I mean, if he had said something like, well, I would, but there's all sorts of legal hurdles, or I would, but the code's a mess, it'd be a real pain in the ass to do it. I can understand that, but just to like, sort of diss him saying he needs therapy because he wants to play Deus Ex in VR. I mean, come on. Like, that's such a, I mean, it's a prick response. It's kind of arrogant, but it also shows that you're so in your bubble with your thinking. You can't, even if you don't, even if you have no interest in VR, you can understand how this guy has a lot of interest for it. So, I mean, that I thought that was a lame response from him. Another one, this isn't exactly like a response, but my mind came to it, was, it wasn't really anything he said, but like director Kevin Smith, where like I think Clerks and Mallrats are fantastic movies. They're amazing. Like they're hilarious and just funny just across the board. I think some of his later stuff, well, I mean, they did Chasing Amy and Dogma, and I thought that wasn't as good, but they're still all right, you know. And, well, I saw was it Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back? I thought that was pretty weak. There were one or two parts that were funny, but it just felt kind of forced, and the jokes weren't that fun. The only part of that I really liked was Good Will Hunting 2, Hunting Season. If you haven't seen that scene, I'll put a link to it in the description. That part's great. I'd say you can skip the entire rest of the movie, but yeah, Jay and Silent, yeah, Good Will Hunting 2. And then like Clerks 2 was all right. Red State was pretty good actually. That one was interesting. That one wasn't a comedy. That was sort of like a suspense thriller that kind of threw you off. Honestly, what it reminded me of is Red State is kind of like an M. Night Shyamalan movie, but better, is how it felt like to me. So that one was pretty encouraging. So I'm like, yeah, I'd be real interested to see what else he comes up with if he's gonna make movies like that. And then I saw, he did another Jay and Silent Bob movie. And this one was so bad, I just stopped watching. I mean, I'm just like, how do you go? Look, I understand it's not easy to make everything a home run, you know, with the writing quality, because it's hard to figure out how funny something is, or maybe things don't quite align properly. I can get that, you know, that like, okay, this movie's not as good as your other stuff. But then Jay and Silent Bob, I even forget the name of it. It was like, this should never have passed any level of quality control. I mean, I would think someone who came up with Clerks, if they saw this script, they would have just tossed it in the trash and thought, okay, we need to start over. You know, like that's, and I'm just kind of mystified how that happens. Like, you know, to go from something that's so good to something that's so like obviously bad. Like, because sometimes what even brilliant people do is they'll make a movie or creative works or something that it's like really out there and it's weird and it just doesn't land with people. And I can understand that because then it's like they're pursuing their own passion project, but it just doesn't happen to connect with others. And I can get that. Or, or it's hard trying to make something as good as what you made originally because, it just everything aligned back then. And for whatever reason, it's hard to make it happen. But there should be some quality level standards that when you have creative control, you shouldn't go, like, I don't understand how you go below that. No, because sometimes you see really good actors who are in like real bombs of movies that are terrible. Well, that can be a lot of things because the actor may not have creative control over that. It could be they needed money and hey, or they were doing this as a favor to one of their friends and like, or it started off good, but then the politics led to a script rewrite and that turned into trash. That's beyond their control. But I mean, if it's Jay and Silent Bob movie, that has to be within his control to a large degree. That's his intellectual property, I would think. So, yeah, that's an example. I just was real disappointed, but I wouldn't write him off completely because Clerks 2 is decent. Oh yeah, was it Jack and Miri Make a Porno? That one was okay. It wasn't that great, but I kind of want to see him make something like Red State again because that one was pretty good. So, or just, or make a Clerks spiritual successor. Like if it's feeling too forced to make a Clerks 3 or 4 or whatever, then just have something similar. But there's probably more things where people have said something. Okay, well, the obvious example is Asmongold. I mean, I guess he wasn't something I really respected or liked because I didn't know much about it, but he did. I would have definitely preferred it if he hadn't made that comment from earlier. So yeah, would have made my life easier. Let's see. Okay, I'm skipping some more stuff. Okay, someone's asking, do I feel safer in Poland than stateside? That's an interesting question. I mean, I feel like one of the bigger threats to me specifically in Poland as compared to the United States be air pollution. Because like on the long term, who knows what that might do. I'm trying to find more solutions, but I think it's like in the winter, it's scandalous is what it is. Has the Baltic Sea ever been a problem to you? Not particularly, but I'm not like right next to it or in a flood zone or anything. What's the closest you've been to an acute emergency in Poland? They're saying besides mold. Well, the mold was practically taking out the ceiling of one of the apartments. It was really, I don't know, it might have been the mold, but, well, I guess me collapsing, yeah, that didn't. Well, I went to the hospital for one thing where I got just incredibly dizzy and it just wouldn't stop. And I had never experienced anything like that. And later the nurse said it was probably just like a milder food poisoning or something, even though my stomach kind of felt okay. I wasn't like in dire pain or distress or anything, but it, in fact, it was kind of ironic. I kept having to call my wife, letting her know, like, no, it's okay. I'm just really, really dizzy. So I figured, well, we should probably check just in case this is something more serious. But that's one thing. I mean, I felt like there was more crime in the United States for things like that. Let's see. Okay, whereby you had serious plans to evacuate. Okay, so they're not talking about like local emergencies. For evacuation, if I'm being completely honest, threat of World War III. Because, look, I don't think Poland specifically is at risk unless there's, well, no, I mean, it is a NATO country, so there might be arms sites that we don't know about, stored like missile locations. But it's more the thought that this escalates into nuclear warfare, in which case it's not really Poland I'm worried about. It's basically the Northern Hemisphere, like mutually assured destruction scenario, where I would want to try to get to the Southern Hemisphere where the fallout is less likely to cross from the wind currents from that. I mean, that would just be apocalyptic. But no, I actually was. My understanding is we had a really close call last month about when the U.S. approved long-range strikes into Russia, like against Moscow, which they were going to consider an act of war, in which they could retaliate on a nuclear scale, because if they're desperate enough, and if they're attacking their capital, they might. But then that got canceled. I don't know. By all means, fact check me on that. But from what I saw, it sounds like we came incredibly close. And I was kind of researching, like, okay, how much would it cost to try to fly out of here if it just... The problem is it's the amount of time between a trigger event when you can get out of here is so short that you kind of, the only winning move is to actually already be out of here. And that's like upending your life on a whim. So it's like, it's rough either way. Do you or the chat think nuclear war is very likely in the next several decades or so? I sure hope not. I think the risk of it is way, way too high. We need more diplomacy. I mean, yeah, I've heard that's one thing that's scarier about now than compared to even like during the Cold War, in that during that time, we still had a line to Russia and there would be communication on like real emergency events. Actually, to take a lighter tone, the beginning of Red Alert 2 shows some of that, where he's calling up, like, the president's calling up, Yuri, like, is there a strike here? What the hell's going on? What are you doing? Like, and yeah, I mean, Red Alert 2 is over the top, but the point is you kind of want a dialogue there, and my understanding is we're more kind of cut off than we were even during the Cold War, so yeah, it's... Let's see. You got... The diplomacy is the way to go with like anything resembling nuclear stuff. This is the sort of thing I probably shouldn't talk about too much on YouTube. But for the threat of nuclear war, it's a concern for sure. So I don't know. There's a difference between that and how likely. Well, the likelihood, it's hard to predict that, because the likelihood is directly proportional to how likely is a leader to just say screw it and do an attack that either triggers a nuclear counterattack or is a nuclear attack. Do an attack that would trigger a nuclear counterattack. So it wouldn't have to be nuclear in itself, but it would have to trigger it. And like there's multiple, like even during the Cold War, there are multiple stories of close encounters we barely know about. So look, I think, yeah, I mean, I'll take a stance on this. I think anyone who downplays that, you're just, you don't understand how bad it is, or you're in that camp of you're too accepting of death, like, in my opinion, because it's, yes, Stanislav Petrov, is that the guy who like refused orders to fire basically because the missile system thought it was a flock of geese were missiles? But there were multiple incidents like that, is my understanding. So that's the thing, like, because I can understand where people, this is what I mean about getting kind of caught in your own world, because I can understand if you're talking about issues of like war, justice, and that sort of thing, you can understand like, well, the just thing to do is to strike back and not show weakness and stuff. However, if that path has a close chance of leading to nuclear warfare, in my mind, the thought of nuclear Armageddon overrides literally everything. I mean, everything. Because the consequences of that would be so incredibly horrible for humanity for millennia that it's just, you can't even play with that notion. I don't know. I'm trying to think of like an analogy to this. I think that's what it is. Take any value system you can think of. If there's a chance it brings you to nuclear war, then you need to ease off from that point once you start approaching that point, because it overrides literally everything for humanity. That's the way I view nuclear war. So that's the framing I would look at it from. Yeah, it is. So, and the best way, I think, to lower the risk is through diplomacy and open dialogue as much as possible. So, because what's the alternative? Because if you put more pressure on the nuclear power and they feel more desperate, that seems like that would take you closer. So, yeah, some situations don't have great answers, but some answers are much better. Some attempts at answers are much better than others. I think that's the way I would leave it. So, and if there was a nuclear attack, I wouldn't feel any safer in the United States than I would in Poland. So, I don't think there's a risk of like invasion of Poland. So, okay, so yeah, I got off track with my questions. More Freeman. What are your thoughts on System Shock 2? It's one of my favorite games of all time. Mine too. So, about the movie. If I were to imagine myself as a musician, what would I play? Well, I play a little bit on piano, but I'm not great at it. That's something I wouldn't mind doing more of, actually. But I'm not good enough to be like a composer. It would just be like playing stuff. I don't have the intuition for music. I'm always impressed by people who are great at composing music, because to me it's like they're it's like they're magicians, because I'll hear it and I'll think, wow, that's such a great tune they came up with. I never would have thought of that. So. Okay, this questions I've answered before. Have you obtained help from people in the EU, been able to reference or link to them? Well, I guess I haven't done the references, but I try to so much. But yeah, we have had some, well, I mean, a lot of the help. I mean, literally every member of the initiative is from the EU. So, but even post-launch, we've had some help. It's just, it's tricky getting exposure, you know? Oh yeah, that's a question I want to answer. Have there been any advancements, setbacks on your quest to achieve GUI enlightenment? And they're saying, have mouth gestures become normal everyday use for you? The problems you mentioned, too much to handle. No, it's going to become. Like, I feel like, you know, in Wayne's World, when he's looking at the guitar, he says, it will be mine. Oh yes, it will be mine. That's how I feel about mouse gestures. I haven't had enough time to throw at it to develop my system fully, but I've made some progress, and I'm gonna get into it more. For GUI progress, I've hit a few snags. Like last time I mentioned that software, was it like Scener or something? I forgot the name of it already. But I tried running it on my natively on Windows 10, and it launched, but then it just didn't seem to do anything. And now I tried it on a virtual machine with Windows 11, and it didn't. It just was real bugged out. So now I'm going to try it on a secondary system with Windows 10, like an updated version of Windows 10, and see if I can get it working. It had some dependencies, but I installed them. And if I can do that, then I can maybe try and figure out a theme and figure out why it's not working on my system. Another snag that kind of stopped me in my tracks was I really wanted to get a Windowblinds theme that I liked. And I liked almost none of the ones that are available to download, though I think the software is good. And I was getting help with one for a while, and I was modeling it after the old school Blue Curve theme from Linux. But he kind of disappeared on me. I'm thinking what I should maybe do is just release that as it is, maybe with credits to the guy. Actually, I don't know who created. Yeah, if you know who created the original Blue Curve theme for Linux, we should probably credit them too, because we're using some assets that they came up with. But I can maybe release this in like a prototype state, like a pre-alpha version. If people want to, you could download it and try it and see. You can get an idea of where I was going with this. But I mean, it needs some stuff finishing off, and it needs to be adopted to like high DPI settings also, which shouldn't be too hard for 200%, but for the others, for like 150 or 175%, though, that might be a little tricky to keep the pixels sharp. But yeah, maybe I'll do that. I'll try and put that in the description if people are interested in it. But yeah, well, this is the snag. Then I wanted to come up with like custom icons I liked. And so the mouse gestures, the desktop-ish replacement, because I'm still using, what is it? What's it called? Something shell. I forget the name of it. It's a start menu replacement that's kind of more old school, though. This may sound like heresy, but I kind of like some aspects of what Windows 11 does, GUI-wise. Not all of them, but like a few things. So maybe I can find something a little more modern as a replacement. If I could replace Nexus Dock with that software that was linked last time, or a lot of it, that would definitely be a bonus, because Nexus Dock has some buggy behavior to it. Classic shell, that was it. Thank you. But so yeah, there's still some stuff to work out. And then once I had something that I could show to people and they could download, and then I would talk about like some other aspects that kind of came up since the first UI episode, I make a conclusion to it. So yeah, I'm gonna get to it. It's just, I might also want to make like a light and a dark theme also. And maybe I could have like a hotkey to swap between them once it gets dark. If I can put all that together, but yeah. Yeah, and actually, one area I've gone backwards in is in Gmail. I used to be able to have a custom background. Now it just gives me an error every single time. I don't get it. I tried purging it, re-uploading it. I tried clearing the browser completely. It just doesn't work. So I don't know. It's like one day Google just decided to have it stop working. Okay. I'm skipping more questions I don't have great answers to. I have not played Beacon Pines, and I checked on that, and that's sorry, but the aesthetics of that look exactly like the sort of game I'm not interested in. Hey, we all have different tastes, you know. I've said before, I'm down to the last questions. You can go ahead and start typing them in the chat. Do @Ross Broadcast. I'll try and get to some. Let's see. Do you know what Pico 8 is? Yeah, that's like that fake console that people make custom games for. I'm open-minded about it. I mean, I guess adhering to like a certain standard that's, like a console that never existed. It doesn't do too much for me personally, but hey, a good game is a good game, you know? So if it's a good game that happens to come on this color palette designed for a fake console that doesn't exist, great, I'll play it. So yeah, maybe I should look up what are the best Pico 8 games. So, let's see. What is your perfect Halloween costume? Well, that's a good question. I saw a good one the other day, if I can find it, where like this kid, like, you know how people have, I know there was one I liked even more, but I can't remember what it is. People have these suits that have like this optical illusion where it looks like an alien's grabbing you or something from behind and walking along with it. They had it where they're wearing this tall coat and then they had their head in a jar that made it look like they were walking along headless, carrying their own head in a jar. That was pretty impressive. Maybe I'll do, if I can find the link, I'll put that up. But I know there's more. Like I went, I think back in high school, I went as the Francis Ford Coppola version of like young Dracula or revitalized Dracula with the frock coat and the sunglasses. And yeah, I had the hair at the time and like the top hat, you know, I like that look. Revitalized Dracula, the Gary Oldman. Okay, so okay, so I'll go to live questions. What is your favorite Hitman game? That's something I really need to catch up on. For Hitman, I tried playing some of the original, didn't really get into it, and to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of stealth games, but I found the story of it and you know the background of it intriguing, so I want to go through and at least watch playthroughs of them. So I can't answer that yet. I have a whole lot of catching up to do on Hitman. And I might play some of the more accessible ones. I'm not sure. Those are probably some of the later ones. So the first one did not come across as super accessible. You ever played or going to play the Metro games? I played some of Metro. I think I didn't get very far though, Metro 2033. I think I triggered a bug where I was being chased by the monsters on like this railway car, and it just kind of kept going on forever. And then like, okay, and I think I triggered a bug, so I have to give it another shot. I'll give it a shot, but I don't know. It wasn't quite grabbing me. I'm kind of more interested in the newer one with Exodus, with them going above ground more. But I'll give it a shot. I don't know. I'm not really into, I guess what I call depressing games, depressing apocalypse games. And it kind of gave that vibe. Because you can have an apocalypse that's desperate. And like, I guess I like, if you're going to have an apocalypse game, I like the ones that are either scary or else this is just, or else a little mind-bending, like, or just completely alternate society. That it's just like, it's like exotic visiting this, you know, place, because so many things are different about our society versus like the apocalypse that you're kind of getting your bearings of it. So I like that. Okay, so what's your next meal gonna be? I'm not sure. I guess in the morning I'll probably have leftover ground turkey, beans, and onions. So I have that. I've been eating a lot of ground turkey. I've been eating a lot of canned green beans lately also, and onions. All right. I'll come back to the questions I just scrolled up. Have there been updates in regards to the Canadian petition? No, I did not mention that. None that I'm aware of. I wouldn't hold my breath on Canada, seeing how some other countries have responded. But you know what? Canada's going to be... God, they're so slippery. I mean, not Canada specifically, but just some of the government responses on this. I want to say, I really hope we're going to force them to give a black and white answer. That they're going to say this is already covered or we're never going to cover this. In which case... I mean, assuming it's negative, or maybe they'll decide that this isn't. Geez, that might be a question. Okay, if Canada decides to get slippery and say this is already covered when it's clearly not, is it worth doing another? It's kind of a similar situation as UK. Is it worth doing another petition that leaves no escape room for an answer? So in other words, like saying this is not covered under this situation because there is no stated duration date. But if they say that, Canada recognizes the rights to the license agreement, yada yada, and then so yeah, no update that I'm aware of. But government moves slow, guys. In fact, it sucks because I got an email recently from somebody that basically they have a kid that's special needs. I think they said they're like 8 years old, that they really, really enjoy this online game from Disney. And Disney said they're going to be shutting it down mid-November. And I'm thinking, oh man, because nothing we're doing is going to move fast enough to save that. And that sucks. Like you can tell this is going to make life really hard for them because like this kid's not going to understand or necessarily get over this game being destroyed. So no, it's not Toontown. He said there were two. One was something arcade and another was a Lion King type game. I forget the name of it exactly, but yeah, that sucks. Like this. Yeah, and the irony is this happened earlier to a game reviewer. I think it was a Jeff Gerstmann, who's basically whose kid was in tears over Animal Crossing, the online functionality they were using shutting down from Nintendo, and it's creating life hell. And then, yeah, there was one kind of dark comedy response to that in this Twitter feed where this guy was saying something like, just build a server emulator in Linux, idiot. Or so. It was obviously a joke, but some people didn't get that it was a joke and it got downvoted a whole bunch, But yeah, and then there were, of course, these chuckleheads saying like, well, the kid shouldn't be that attached to the game. And I'm just thinking, you know what? I think that's more for the parent to decide how much, if the kid wants to play the game or not. Or if the kid's playing it too much, especially for the special needs kid who's not going to understand necessarily. But if this could be being able to play this game for better or worse could be a core of their emotional like stability and development for all you know. So it's just like, again, there's always people who don't get it, but I think the people who don't, most of the people who don't get it aren't going to do a whole lot to stop it either. But, well, we'll see how it goes. This is all an uphill battle as it is. But yeah, we're still waiting on Canada. Wouldn't hold my breath, but I really want them to own it one way or the other. Either saying, no, this is not lawful, which might mean we have to take a second round, depending on what they say. Or they just say, no, you have no chance. We're never going to defend this. In which case, there we go. Democracy. Okay. How do you maintain an internal sense of balance in yourself? I get the impression that you focus on nothing but the videos for at least 12 hours a day. Oh, no, I don't. That's when I'm doing crunches, man. Like, I hate that. But I mean, I'd say exercise is just essential, but exercise, I'm trying to think of how to explain it. Exercise, it's absolutely essential for kind of keeping my head straight, but it's almost like a short-term solution that's the way to look at it. Like it buys me time, like for mentally, like exercise doesn't keep away the existential dread. You need something else for that. Is the way I look at it. Like it helps. Yeah, exercise feels like a temporary solution, and it's a very necessary temporary solution, is the way I feel. But for longer term, I guess I have like the things I look forward to, and like kind of working towards, and things like that. Like I mentioned, like I'm actually playing Blood Omen in VR. Like I feel like I'm in the promised land having those moments like that. I've been kind of working towards having experiences like that, or hearing like wonderful music, or reading books with great stories, or fantastic movies. Just kind of being able to discover that, just things that kind of give yourself meaning. So, like I said before, I'm not a doomer. I can find things I like and hope for and appreciate. So, in fact, that's one habit I get into when I'm really, really busy and I don't have any free time and it's kind of working on me. And sometimes I'll keep like this mini list of things I want to enjoy once I do have free time again. So, and that kind of helps keep me going a little bit. Okay. More questions. Gaming convention in London called EGX. It's run by Eurogamer. I talked to them if security will let me. But do you have any other suggestions? Probably not, because either the other suggestions I don't know about or they're already being pursued. I guess if you do see the way I see it, you may have a good in already. I guess the one thing to emphasize with them is just ask, how can we get more exposure on this in non-English languages? Because people can be attacking it, promoting it, whatever. We just need to let people know this exists. That's our biggest enemy. So yeah, they don't have to, what? They don't have to support it. Just a Eurogamer, it might be enough to just report on it, saying it exists. That's our mission for like trying to get exposure, I think. I mean, of course, I want people to support it and everything, but I think it's a popular enough initiative. We just need the eyes on it. So, okay, more questions. Are you thinking of trying to open a Blue Sky account? I may at some point. Yeah, I'm just kind of seeing where the herd moves to, but if that happens, yeah, I'll open one. Ever think of a Baldur's Gate series on Game Dungeon? Minus 3, obviously. Well, I still need to play the earlier ones, and I'm not sure how hardcore they are or not. If they're pretty hardcore, I may just watch playthroughs, even though you can make decisions in them. And someone is working on a real-time combat mod for Baldur's Gate 3. I saw some footage of it. It looked pretty encouraging. And they said it's like alpha state or pre-alpha, and it might take them a while. Fine by me, man. I think a lot of people will. I think that would expand a lot of interest if there's like a good real-time combat mod for Baldur's Gate 3. Hell yeah, I'll play it then. So yeah, look it up. I'll put it in the description. I guess we'll have a lot of links this time when I put this on YouTube in a day or so. But yeah, it's I do want to catch. But Baldur's Gate, the Baldur's Gate series is on my list of to play or watch a walkthrough or watch a playthrough of at some point. It's not top of the list, but it's on there. Yeah, I definitely have an interest in it. I mean, I like fantasy stuff in general, especially if it gets kind of out there or it's this big epic adventure, that sort of thing. Oh, and I saw the question earlier, though they may have left. Someone asked if I played the Gothic series and what I thought of it. I played Gothic 1 through 3, and I think it's very impressive. I still need to play Arcania, and I didn't play Forsaken Gods, but yeah, the first one is probably my favorite. 3 was more of a mix. 2 is still pretty good. So a lot of people like 2 more than 1, but yeah, I think the first one's my favorite. Yeah, that one might get a game dungeon eventually if people want it. There's plenty I could say about Gothic. Are you familiar with Jagged Alliance 2? Well, I know of the Jagged Alliance series, though I haven't played any of them. Oh, okay. Well, okay. Wait, this one's about Hitman. Okay, contracts and blood money. Oh, favorite Hitman game. Well, how do I know what my favorite is if I haven't played them and I don't know what's in all of them? So, uh, let's see. Okay, so you're familiar with Jagged Alliance 2? No, I'm not. I know of Jagged Alliance, but I haven't played them. I can't remember if those were real-time tactics or turn-based tactics, but I tend to kind of gravitate towards games that are a little more fantastic. Whereas, I mean, unless I like really like the theme of what's going on with it. Whereas Jagged Alliance look more just like kind of mercenary scenario, going in for a tactical mission, that sort of thing. And that can be okay. I mean, I don't hate it, but it's just if it's up against something like demons coming from straight out of hell or a portal to another dimension or exploring unknown space and finding alien, that stuff has much more wow factor for me. So I tend to move towards that sort of thing. That's probably the reason I haven't looked more in the Jagged Alliance. Though for sure it has a cult following. Have I contacted Yong Yi? Sorry if mispronouncing. I did send an email. I didn't get any reply. People are saying I should probably make a Twitter post and give him a mention in it. I mean, I can do it. Man, I have to like fight my instincts to do that because I'm trying not to be a pest about this publicly. And I feel like that's kind of doing it. But that's probably something I should do for the campaign. But I'm trying to think of like the least obnoxious way to do that. And I probably should have done it right after he did a news report saying it. But okay, see somebody saying at contacting people on Twitter is the worst way to contact people. Yeah, see that I don't look. He's already done us a favor mentioning Stop Killing Games multiple times. Yeah, see, yeah, I'm really. That's what I said. I never really wanted to be doing this campaign. I still don't. But, you know, it's... So, yeah, feel free to spread the... How about that? Everybody watching, maybe if he does streams or something, you can tell. Feel free to spread the word that I am perfectly open to talking to him about this. And if he's not up for it, just... If I'm not... Has he mentioned the Citizens Initiative? I know he's mentioned Stop Killing Games multiple times, but yeah. If he is interested, yeah, spread the word. If he is interested in talking about it, I'm happy to. I can clarify anything, so. Okay. If you want, can you send an email getting more detail, but special needs is a term rejected by the disabled community for the most part. Well, no, I'm not going to send that because who the hell am I to say that to somebody who with an actual child who has development problems and he's the one saying that to me? Like, I feel like that's kind of a prick move then. So like, he's the one who should, it affects his life more than I do. He's going to know about how he wants to see that feels almost like what's the term, like tone policing or something from somebody who's not part of the who's not part of that community from an outsider. Like that's a prick move too, man. Like it's good to have some perspective, guys. Yeah. When do you think is the moment Stop Killing Games is dissolved? Okay, well, that depends if we have success or not. Okay, let's say we have no success, like The petitions, they just say we're not going to do anything. We don't get the signature count for the Citizens Initiative, and all three of the consumer agencies say, no, this is all fine. You don't have any rights. Then it's all done. So, yeah, then it's pretty much over. So how soon? Well, I think the biggest, or when do you think? Well, so I mean, you could say July for the, I mean, July is probably a safe bet that the consumer agencies will have probably given us an answer by then. And of course, the petition will be over one way or the other. However, if we had a success like this, like we did, like one of the consumer agencies says, no, this is not legal, well, then I would try to leverage that as much as possible to get the citizens' initiatives more signatures. And if we can pass that, then that might be going on. I guess it's tricky because I'll still have some involvement, but yeah, that's the good way to look at it. I think by July, regardless of how it goes, things will be kind of done on our end. Like we're not going to need a giant movement to do things. I mean, maybe people will come up with ideas of something that can help between now and then also, but it'll, it'll be out of our hands. It'll be in government's hands. Oh yeah, that's another thing, comment that I saw pop up, that the people saying this, I'm sure will never hear it, is when they were criticizing me in my chat for saying, well, that's not our job. I think they were interpreting that like we're being lazy, so we're not listing it. No, it's literally not our job. We don't have the authority to do it when I say that. Like when they're asking, how would we enforce this? Well, it doesn't matter how we might propose we enforce it. That's not on the table. Like that was, it's like if you said, if you're reporting, you think there's a crack den in the house next to you. It's like, well, have you shown the evidence to the police? It's like, well, that's not my job because I don't have authority to go into their house, like to look for evidence. That's the cop's job. It's my job to report the suspicious activity, I think people didn't understand that. And like, there was that for the enforcement. And what was the other thing I said that wasn't our job? I forget, but yeah, that's, so I think come July, unless there's some new development I'm not aware of or forgot about, it's not our job to keep pushing things on Stop Killing Games. It's the government's job at that point, one way or the other. So, I mean, I'll probably still be when I say our, I mean like everybody. The people's jobs it'll still be would be the actual official organizers, because it will be their job to go to Brussels to give their feedback on the changes if it gets that far. So, but that's like what, 15 or 18 people, something like that. So literally everybody else, it's out of our hands. It's in government hands then, and the organizers. So. Okay. Lost my spot again. Okay, there we go. Maybe I should email about this, but could you outline your research methods? It just depends on what you're talking about. It varies a lot. Any way of reaching John Carmack? Not that I know of, but actually someone sent me an email. They were going to some convention. They were going to try to talk directly to John Romero about this. So we'll see how that goes. When's the next Freeman's Mine? I don't know. I have to make it first. Halloween takes higher priority. Sorry. Canada's pushing hard for election, which maybe Canadian petition is going to go through the same crap as British petition. Well, we'll see. It's really depends on the answer. Yeah, well, I guess I guess that is, as I said, I'm not the expert on this. Well, I'm slowly becoming the expert. It's an amateur effort with the campaign. One thing I've kind of learned from the petition is stating the problem very clearly isn't necessarily enough. What you might have to do is state it in such a blindingly obvious way that you're referring to the law that they're going to refer you to say that this does not apply. Can we please? So basically, think we may have to do that with UK and Canada again. We'll see. Because if their answer is like, well, we have these protections under this directive or this law, we need to say, so that means we need to come back and say, under this law, we have no protections because the games are designed like this. Can we have some? As these slippery bastards might still get out of it, but you can only, if they can get out of like a second attempt where we're just laser targeting this, then they're going to get out of anything. So, which is kind of an answer in itself. So, okay. Okay, Canada. Baldur's Gate from GameCube is more hack and slash. Really is fun. I don't think that's Baldur's Gate exactly. Is it that? That's like a totally different game. What the hell is that thinking of? Or it might be Baldur. It might be a Baldur's Gate offshoot. Damn it! It's like on the tip of my tongue what that game is. Had a sequel too, and it recently had a port to PC, like a few months back. Somebody knows what I'm talking about. It was a Dungeons and Dragons console exclusive for a long time. Top-down view, Dark Alliance. Thank you. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah. So I think that's separate from Baldur's Gate. It's still Dungeons and Dragons, but it's a totally different game. So I'm saying Ace Combat 3 OST soundtrack. Awesome. I like recommendations about that because I'm not that interested in realistic dogfight games that are kind of like sim-ish but I might love the soundtrack. So yeah, Ace Combat 3, make a note of it. That's great because you're giving me tips to something good I never would have run into organically, most likely, so on my own. They're confused by my response. So, which game okay, round 3 on Hitman, well, finally. Which game featuring hired assassins, not including the Hitman games, is your favorite that you have played? Oh, okay. So Hitman is just regular term, not the proper name. One is on the tip of my tongue, but or it's not on the tip of my tongue. It's like part of my brain is saying, no, there's one really cool game with an assassin that's kind of out there, Ross. But I can't remember it. I have to think about it. I feel like it was like it involved an assassin, but that's not really the main point of the game. It's like something else was kind of spiraling out of control. I'd have to think about it, I guess. Nothing comes to mind offhand. Because I'm trying to think of like how many games have like an assassin as the character. There's definitely several, but I'm running a little dry. Like I'm thinking, Diablo 2 has an assassin. Probably, but I mean that's not much character to them. I mean the Hitman series. I think I played one. Oh geez, I forgot the name of it. It was like an indie type Hitman game, but the Cleaner or something like that. Well, Hotline Miami is kind of interesting. I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but what I think about Skibbity Toilet, I still don't know what it is, and from what very little I've seen, I probably don't want to. Toilet humor isn't my favorite, so I figure why seek it out. So, I mean, it can be, but it has to be really clever. Because I was thinking of that, like that skit from Whitest Kids You Know, about the meeting. That one's really funny, but that's kind of the exception to the rule. So. Yeah, to me, the toilet humor isn't the funny part. It's the shock reaction of everybody else that's the funny part. So, somebody's saying the parent has a responsibility as well. Man, dude, you're reaching, man. Like you're trying to tell a parent with a disabled kid how they should talk about their own disabled kid. Like, I mean, I don't know enough about this community to be able to speak authoritatively, but I'm just saying, just my first impression, you're really, that's not, I think that's not a helpful mentality you're taking. I mean, it's, considering who you're trying to tell it to. Now, if it was coming from like a meetup group or something, like a community support group, and then they mentioned that to them, that like, hey, as we found this is problematic, that's a little different. But this guy's on the front lines for dealing with that sort of thing, and you're trying to tell him he's talking about the wrong. I mean, okay, you know what this makes me think of? This would be like telling a World War II vet you shouldn't call someone shell-shocked. You should say they have post-traumatic stress disorder. Well, who the hell are you to tell that to them? I mean, that's how they refer to it. They're the ones that went through that. So, I mean, maybe the community-wise, you decide, PTSD is a better term than shell-shocked over time. Fine, but to tell them not to say that, I mean, that's what this feels like to me. That's like, I find that like, I think that would be incredibly rude to do that to somebody who has done that. I mean, maybe they'll have a good humor about that, but if they don't, I mean, you're touching on you're trying to, you're trying to like, I'm not even sure the words for it, like kind of not exactly negate their life experience, but like trivialize it in a way that's like kind of offensive. I mean, I don't know. It's, yeah, I mean, it depends on the context, but man, the thought of me telling that to that guy who said that to me, get out of here. Okay. Yeah, I think my analogy to like a war, telling a World War II vet you shouldn't refer to it as shell shocked. I mean, that's okay. But again, I'm not someone who's a part of that community, so I don't feel qualified to specify that. But for me to come in and say that, especially as someone who's not overly familiar with that, like I have no right to tell them that, I think. Let's see. Any old contact to help this position. The sentence is a bit tricky to read. Any old contact you talk to help this position. I realize there's some typos, but there's a few people I need to follow up on that I plan to contact. But I don't. Really, the only people I have success with are people who I've actually communicated with in the past. And a lot of them are already on board and have kind of done things. So I really need to kind of branch out more, especially with non-English speakers. And it's tricky contacting them. Last anime you have watched? Well, that's a good question. It might have been Akira, just because I rewatched it after using footage for it from one of the game dungeons. I was like, damn, this is good. And so after I did that, I wanted to rewatch it again. But for last new one that like I hadn't seen previously, it's been a long time. Might have been Death Note. Friend got me to watch that. And I owe another friend to watch Berserk, because I told him I watched Berserk if he watched Aeon Flux, and he watched Aeon Flux, so I still need to make good on my deal here. Oh, but wait, I did watch the Castlevania one. So that's right. So yeah, that would have been like the most recent one. And I saw Nocturne, but I thought Nocturne was a lot weaker. It didn't have the magic of the original. Will there be a Halloween game dungeon? You bet. You bet. It's underway. And it's a game that has... It's incredible in some ways. I'll say that. So, okay, I should really kind of speed around these questions. I'll try to do that. Do you have any opinions on Serious Sam? Yeah, I think every one of them is a mix, but they're all amazing in their own ways. How you feel? Trying to get this petition to this mass is insane if you don't have a big following. Yeah, we may not do it. I'm trying. Hey, if my absolute best is not good enough, I mean, that's reality, so. What happened to us viewers if you were to die before you retire the channel? I think my spouse would be absolutely crushed and might have a lot of trouble functioning if that happened. Will the channel get canned? It would probably just stay in a dormant state, and it would be like I just disappeared. So it might get shut down eventually from YouTube, but I don't think it'd be first. So. You talk about your research methods regarding world events. It depends on the event. I kind of check. There's some news I kind of seek out, but this is getting too long. This is too long a question for this late, but. So I was saying it might be running low on energy. It might be some of that. Plus, I'm not good at like rapid fire reading all these comments and finding out exactly what was said. I'm not a great multitasker. I think Stop Killing Games will not be determined by Skibbity Toilet. I would need the evidence to think that it will be, you know. I played a little bit of Arcanum of Steamworks, but I didn't get that far into it. It wasn't quite grabbing me, but I know that one also has a cult following. And this is spazzing all over the place with the messages. Yeah, I saw that meme. Jimmy Carter too old officially to play with Lego. It's just kind of a dumb meme. Oh, best spicy food you've tasted after having moved to Poland? Oh, that's a pretty good question. Indian or Thai can be really great. But all right, I think that's well, I end it because it's making me hungry. So this went on a while. I did answer a lot of live questions this time, though. Yeah, I guess that's it. Halloween stuff coming. Sorry it's not more. I'm really trying to get more out, though. So things are mostly winding down on my end with the campaign. I mean, I'm still available, though. Actually, last week I had a interview with Euronews. It was actually the day after I got the injury, so he got to see me in full bloody amount. But it wasn't a video interview, so that's probably just as well there. I wasn't just looking like the mummy or something. All right. See, I'm going to eat and do Halloween stuff. See you later.